This paladin is so despicable. This video is purely for entertainment and does not infringe on copyrights or laws. The rights to the novel and image belong to the original author. We do not claim ownership. Don't like waiting and want to listen to this fanfic in full now? Subscribe to our Patreon, where you'll find the best fanfics. Chapter 351. The more the better, asking for monthly tickets. You guys stay here. I'll go by myself. In order to take care of the feelings of the elves, Wright decided to go to the central lake alone. After all, this is someone else's sacred tree, or sacred mushroom. Even if the Queen of Elf wants to worship, she must ask the goddess of life with the high priest in advance. After the divine decree is given, she will bathe in clean water and then go to worship accompanied by the high priest. I have already done a special thing, and it is not good to break the rules with Lilith and Emily. Fortunately, Lilith and others are more knowledgeable and stay by the lake. Wright turned directly into a stream of light and came to the island in the middle of the lake. Standing in front of the mushroom of life, Wright's expression was a little melancholy. He used the rotten body of the ancient tree of life to create the mushroom of life, although it is the latest version 3.0 of the tree of life system. But in fact, it has long been unrecognizable. The two sides have no many similarities, except that the functions are similar. The key is that this thing can absorb sunlight during the day and absorb moonlight at night. If it continues to absorb and release the essence of the sun and the moon, who knows if a monkey or something will pop out one day. But now, at least its existence has allowed the entire world to enter a good internal cycle of self-repair. If it continues like this, in a few years, the damage that the world once suffered from the overgrazing of the gods will be repaired. But now, Wright is ready to help it speed up. He stretched out his hand and pressed on the mushroom of life, and his thoughts resonated with it. Although Wright did not have the position of the god of life as a creator, he had higher authority than the god of life. With the guidance of his power, the underground part of the mushroom of life began to extend a large amount of hyphae. These hyphae were thick and tough. Under Wright's control, they continued to grow downwards and explore in the direction of the underground city. Finally, after continuous growth, the hyphae of the mushroom of life came to the cave where the main underground city was located. With the appearance of roots, rich life force emanated from it, filling the entire cave with energy. Except for the holy undead, other monsters were bathed in spring breeze. Under the gaze of the monsters, roots emerged from the top of the cave, growing and stretching continuously, and finally drilled into the central altar of the dungeon. All this was obviously very strange, but it made the monsters present have the urge to worship, because they felt the breath of the Master Wright. When the roots of the mushroom of life were inserted into it, new fungi began to grow. Under the infusion of majestic energy, 3 new magic mushrooms grew in the altar, symbolizing the undead, the swamp and the dark respectively. Looking at these 3 magic mushrooms, all the monsters came to the altar to worship. And Wright also sensed the situation of the dungeon with the help of mycelium on the central island of the Lake of Life. It seems to be done. 3 mushrooms gather at the top. In Wright's perception, the periphery of the entire central dungeon has been almost built. Just as he was about to give an order to let these people go to the designated destination to start building the undead dungeon, he saw the elf queen with a team of guards coming to the central island. Your Highness, Your Highness, Your Majesty. Wright frowned slightly. Could it be that the elf queen wanted to stop or hinder him? Unexpectedly, after the queen arrived on the island, she quickly asked someone to bring a box over. Your Highness, I was just chatting with your wives by the lake. I heard that you want to rebuild the underground city? This sentence has a lot of loopholes. Forget it. I do plan to rebuild the underground city. For the matter of the Hades Beach. The queen quickly opened the treasure chest, only to see a large number of ancient parchment scrolls inside. Then these scrolls may be able to help you. What is this? A city building order. A city building order for the dungeon. The elf queen took out one and handed it to Wright, explaining, this is the spoils accumulated when our elves participated in the eradication of underground forces. A city building order like this can easily and effectively build a new city underground. You just need to build a dungeon altar first, then put the scroll in it, and then inject magic power. Is there such a good thing? In fact, it is a special magic scroll, which mostly uses shaping magic such as earth and water. A powerful dungeon lord can further change and strengthen the new dungeon according to his own wishes when unsealing the scroll. The elf queen patiently explained to Wright, "One thing to note is that although this scroll is easy to use, it requires a huge amount of magic power to support it. Generally, when a dungeon lord uses this kind of scroll, he will first cover the altar with magic crystals. Or, you can make an agreement with the evil gods, who need to be worshipped in advance, and the energy for building the city will be provided by the evil gods, or borrowed. There are also situations where the evil gods and the dungeon lord each bear a certain proportion." The corners of Wright's mouth twitched, and he suddenly had a strange feeling. The so-called dungeon lord is actually a franchise store, and the various evil gods are various commercial franchises. To open a franchise store, you need to sign an agreement with the evil gods, pay a franchise fee, and find a store to recruit staff. Some evil gods are easier to talk to, and will help with decoration, provide equipment, and train personnel. Looking at a box of franchise books, a box of dungeon construction contracts, Wright was speechless. "Why didn't you take it out earlier? If I had known about this thing earlier, I wouldn't have worked so hard." The elf queen was also a little embarrassed. "Your Highness, please forgive me. My sister suddenly returned, and my mind was in a mess, so I forgot about this matter. I just remembered it when I was chatting with those people just now. You may not know that there are actually a lot of dark elves. My sister brought back only about 1%. If you accept them, there will definitely be more dark elves in the future, and even other dark creatures who are eager for salvation will come. Come quickly. The more the better." When Wright heard this, his eyes lit up. Now, the thing he doesn't mind the most is the population. The underground city cluster is just the starting standard. In the future, he will conquer a large territory in the Hades Beach. By then, I don't know how many underground cities he will build. Although he has obtained various free contracts, some special arms cannot be obtained through summoning contracts. For example, the Dark Elves are air arms that were originally elves and later fell. Even if they give more dark energy, the Dark Realm can't go to other worlds and find ordinary elves to pour dark energy into their mouths to corrupt them, right? But if you want to get the image of the Demon King, the monsters under your command must not only be large in number, but also of all kinds. Otherwise, it is easy to be biased and end up becoming the Goblin King, or the Slime King, or even the Holy Flame Skeleton King. That would be a lot of fun. Your Majesty, please spread the word and let as many dark elves as possible participate in the construction of the dungeon. The world needs them. Chapter 352 I build a temple with bones. After a night of rest, Wright and his companions once again came to the underground city outside the capital of the elves. Under the sleepless construction and restoration of the monsters, a huge underground city has been built. It must be said that their speed is still worthy of recognition. Moreover, whether in terms of numbers or special abilities, these monsters have advantages that human architects do not have. Seeing that the headquarters underground city has taken shape, Wright gave up the idea of using scrolls. Save as much as possible, be frugal, these are Wright's subconscious principles of behavior. The 3 magic mushrooms are all good, so they can be used as the core of my 3 underground cities. Wright waved his hand and commanded the Holy Flame Skeleton, Slime and Goblin to pick the magic mushrooms of their corresponding attributes and assemble outside the city gate. After the team was almost ready, Wright came to the front of the team and began to give a pre-war mobilization speech. Today is a day worth remembering, because we are about to make history. For so many years, it has only been the Hades that has eroded the worlds, spreading disasters and misfortunes everywhere. It once became synonymous with tragedy and destruction. But today, we will be the first big world to counterattack the Hades. We will bring destruction, slaughter, and conquest to the Hades. Our troops will be invincible, and everywhere we go will be desolate. Our notoriety will spread to every corner of the Hades. It will become the most terrible nightmare of all enemies. The wicked will eventually be punished by the wicked. We just want to let the Hades know who is the worst of the evil. Let's go. Wright drew out the sunlight with a bang and pointed to the rock wall in front. In the name of the worst. The monsters were so excited that their blood boiled. Even though there was a rock wall in front of them, they walked forward without hesitation. Wright took out the crystal skull with one hand and said softly, "The will of the underworld, it's time for you to fulfill your promise." Before he finished speaking, 2 rays of light suddenly burst out from the eyes of the crystal skull, shining on the rock wall. The surrounding space began to distort and collapse, and then a strong and terrifying aura of death rushed towards him. Wright immediately threw the crystal skull out, blocking the aura of death outside the breach of the holy light world. Only then did everyone realize that the rock wall in front of them disappeared, replaced by a silent beach. As far as the eye can see, the end of the horizon is the coastline with ebb and flow, and under the feet is a vast beach that looks like countless tiny bones. Is this the underworld beach? Emily looked at this dead land in shock. Because of Wright, she had seen the true body of the god of death more than once. But the power of death on the god of death is calm and peaceful, like a tamed livestock. And the surging power of death here is violent and brutal, like a beast in the jungle. It was because of the crystal skull that she was blocked. Otherwise it felt like the death force alone could tear a living person like her into pieces. Emily was shocked. She felt that, even if she opened the domain to protect her body, she couldn't hold on for too long. Jenny next to her was already trembling all over. She was not even at the saint level, so it was even more unbearable. As for Lilith, there was no need to worry at all. She felt as comfortable here as if she had returned to her hometown. The negative energy here was so much that it was intoxicating. However, what shocked Emily was that other monsters didn't seem to be affected too much. The holy skeletons were fine, but the slimes and goblins seemed to be fine. As if seeing Emily's doubts, Lilith blocked Jenny behind her and explained, "You are living creatures, so you will naturally be extremely hostile to the law of death. But people like you are either undead or have a high resistance to the law of death. This is the nature of dark monsters, because they live in a harsh environment, and after a long period of evolution, this is the result." Emily thought about it, and it was right. After all, they are often with death, and those with low resistance would have been killed long ago. Those who can survive are naturally those with high resistance. Don't worry, you won't be so uncomfortable soon. Under Wright's order, the holy flame skeletons began to build a dungeon altar in the open space in front of them, and other combat units were on guard at the periphery. In fact, when the passage to the Hades beach was opened, Wright felt that many strong people stranded on the Hades beach had paid attention to it. But these cautious guys would definitely not choose to explore it at the first time. The first shot may be more profitable if it succeeds, but the possibility of capsizing in the gutter is also higher. After the altar was completed, Wright climbed onto the altar, threw the magic mushroom symbolizing the power of death into it, and then threw down a scroll for building a dungeon. Then, he began to guide the powerful power of death in the nether sea and the vast amount of holy light power in the holy light world. When the two forces gathered here and gradually took shape in the altar, the entire nether beach began to tremble. The white gold holy flame of death soared into the sky, forming an extremely huge mushroom cloud. The pressure generated swept across the surrounding space, and even the coastline of the nether sea in the distance was affected, setting off huge waves. Almost all the giants of the nether beach saw this sacred breath of death. This shocked them, and made them extremely frightened. Under Wright's control, a majestic city was slowly rising in the holy flame of death. It was made of bones, and the rocks were like the flesh and blood of the city, attached to the skeleton, making it more solid and hideous. At the original altar location, countless holy flames of bone spread and grew, and finally turned into a majestic temple. Above the main hall, the holy fire was shining, emitting a pressure that seemed to be real. Everyone present looked at this majestic city in shock, especially the bone temple behind the altar. Is this really just an underground city? It feels more exaggerated than some temples of gods. In the altar, the death magic mushroom also grew and grew wildly, and finally stood in front of the door of the bone temple like an alien mushroom of life. It's not over yet. After Wright finished all this, he suddenly stretched out his hand and pointed at the bone temple. Let the sacred flame bloom in death. Praise the Master of Death. A divine light fell from the holy light world and shone into the bone temple. It was the white mushroom lady who had just been created some time ago. With the seat of the gods, the entire temple was considered to have completed the next step and began to emit a strong divine power, echoing with the death mushroom at the door. The Holy Flame underground city is located right at the junction of the Holy Light World and the Underworld Beach. While isolating the two, it also becomes the throat between the two. In this way, there is no need to worry about the violent death energy in the Underworld Beach invading the Holy Light World, and it does not delay the Holy Light World from entering and leaving the Underworld Beach. It can be said to kill two birds with one stone. And Wright, who accomplished this feat, reached out and pressed on the death mushroom. Now, I can finally summon some high-level holy undead. Please vote for me. Chapter 353 Summoning the Skeleton Emperor. When the Holy Flame Bone City was built, it seemed as if there was a lighthouse on the Nether Beach. The towering death mushroom, burning with the blazing holy flame of the dead soul, illuminated the surroundings as bright as day. Those who didn't know would think that the sun had risen above the Nether Beach. And just as Lilith expected, when the holy flame of the dead soul, born from the fusion of death and holiness, was felt by some undead evil gods, it had a great impact on their godhood, divinity, and even the foundation of the gods. Some even had cracks in their foundations, and almost died on the spot. Some even fell into incomprehensible madness, and had serious mental problems. The emergence of the Holy Flame Bone City was a shock to the Nether Beach, and even a disaster. Not to mention the Nether Beach, even the Nether Sea was a little frightened by Wright's operation. The four death gods who made the deal at the beginning only realized why Wright asked for all the agency rights instead of partial ownership. To complete the fusion of holiness and death, it must be a comprehensive image of death. So he chose a seemingly unwise proxy at that time, but in fact he was making a trade-off for this step. So far, he has been very successful. Then, these death gods watched Wright start to summon some undead creatures that almost broke them apart. Bone forging. In the Holy Flame Bone City, Wright stretched out his hand and pressed on the death mushroom, whispering softly, "My turn, draw a card." Amid his roar, a huge skeleton giant stepped out of the holy flame and knelt in front of him. "I respect your command, Master." "Is this a high-level undead skeleton giant?" Lilith looked at the huge skeleton as tall as a tower. Why do I feel a terrifying pressure from this skeleton giant? Impossible. I'm at the conceptual level. How? You. What did you summon? Wright turned around and grinned. "Have you heard of God's eldest son?" "God's eldest son." Lilith covered her mouth and looked at Wright in horror. You lunatic. It was the first time Emily saw Lilith call Wright a lunatic so out of control. After all, among all people, she has followed Wright for the longest time and should have the highest resistance. She looked at this huge skeleton giant. Although it is a skeleton, this high-level undead has many bones on its body. Rather than a skeleton, it is more like a giant steel puppet made of bones. Lilith also shouted, "Don't lie to me. Their skeletons are not like this. I was also fortunate to see one or two of their remains." Wright shook his finger. "I summoned their will. As for this body, I designed it myself and built it using the mechanism of the dungeon." Emily hurriedly stood beside the two of them. Okay, don't argue for now. What is the eldest son of God?" Lilith took a deep breath, calmed down, and explained. The so-called eldest son of God refers to the first batch of creatures born in the beta world. Or, people often call it Titan in some myths and legends. Emily pointed to the skeleton giant kneeling on one knee beside her, like a small hill. Is this a Titan? The real Titan is countless times bigger than him. The world bubble in the hands of the Titan is like a glass bead. But as time goes by, the Titans began to die out, and the new generation of Titans, the power and size are constantly shrinking. Slowly, they evolved into the original Celestials. Lilith paused here. "Emily, do you still remember C? Yeah, I know, the one who was promoted from the god of the sea to an indescribable powerful existence. The sapphire he left behind helped Wright a lot. That sea is the Celestials. They are often born from some images of certain worlds. They are bred from the world itself and eventually mature. An ancient god once said that the so-called world bubble, the so-called worlds, actually exist to breed the Celestials. The current path of God's promotion is nothing more than a poor imitation of the natural growth process of the Celestials. However, as time goes by, the Celestials have almost disappeared. The current metaverse has become like this." After hearing what Lilith said, Emily felt her head swell. Then it is really a titan? Of course not. Wright directly rejected this statement. If it is really an ancient titan, why would I have to spend so much effort? Just take it and blow up the gate of truth. I just mentioned the eldest son of God. Besides, how could there be a complete titan undead in this world? Lilith breathed a sigh of relief after hearing what he said. Then what is this? If there is no complete one, are there any scattered ones? I asked for all the authority of the death in the underworld sea, and fished it out from the underworld sea. Wright patted the leg bone of the skeleton giant, then I made some modifications, so it can be regarded as a giant. How about it? Isn't it cool? Don't do such scary things in the future. After Lilith roared angrily, she also admitted helplessly, indeed, it is very strong. Skeleton giant is not enough to describe him. I think it is more appropriate to call him Skeleton Emperor. However, you found the spirit body of the ancient titan in the underworld sea, although there is only a little bit, but you are too lucky, right? No, you have been with us all the time. Haven't you gone to fish? Wright laughed proudly. Lilith, what is the commonality of the divinity of the ancient titans? The commonality. I heard it is sacred. Yes, the ancient titan clan is also called the Holy Titan. Wright spread out his hands. One hand was surging with holy light, and the other hand was entangled with death. He clapped his hands, and the holy flame of the dead souls burned fiercely. As long as the holy flame of the dead souls is still burning, this place will be like a beacon of return, constantly gathering the speckled spirit bones of the holy titans. Maybe after tens of millions of years, we can really gather a complete titan spirit bone. But I don't need a complete titan spirit bone, I only need specks, and I can create such a skeleton emperor. For me to drive, become my weapon to sweep across the Hades beach, and also be the bait for fishing the gate of truth. Wright pointed at the skeleton emperor and said, from now on, you are the first city defender of this holy flame bone city. Your name is Thunderbolt. Come, Huozi, show everyone 2 unique skills. Follow your orders. Master. The skeleton emperor stood up, and under the shocked gaze of everyone, he began to twist and deform, turning into a large caliber armored vehicle with double turrets. Yes. Wright introduced to the people who were so shocked that they couldn't speak, we can also transform. Huozi. Aerial form. Chapter 354. What is conquest? The entire dungeon cluster has not been built yet, so Wright has very limited, sacred, on hand. After summoning a skeleton emperor with the holy titan's true spirit, it was exhausted. If you want to accumulate new holy titan high level undead, you probably have to wait until the entire filtering and decomposition system is completed and then slowly accumulate them. But the summoned Thunderbolt is simply too strong. He has a strong fighting power as soon as he was born, and his strength is close to that of a high level law god. Especially in the place of Hades Beach, its sacred undead nature has a dimensionality reduction attack on the evil gods here. After all, even the malicious Lilith can feel a certain sense of oppression from the other party. And because of Wright's bad taste, Thunderbolt has a variety of super transformation modes. Skeleton Emperor form, Skeleton Chariot form, Skeleton Fighter form, Skeleton Battleship form. It can be said that this guy is a pure war machine from head to toe. With such a city guard general stationed, plus the supervision of the deity Lady White Mushroom, the Holy Flame Bone City basically doesn't need Wright to worry about it. With the holy flame of the dead soul burning in the death mushroom, the surrounding Hades beach was illuminated as bright as day. The ominous aura was completely dispelled, and Lilith and Jenny returned to normal. With this torch, it feels like this Hades beach is no different from the normal world. That's true, otherwise why would I prepare for so long? Wright spread his hands. We came here not to simply occupy, nor to plunder without restraint. We came to conquer. What is conquest? Of course, it is to turn the other party into your own shape. Faced with Wright's bold words, the others didn't know how to react for a while. This is a bit exaggerated. After all, Hades Beach is a place that even the will of the Hades Sea cannot solve. This is the largest lawless place in the meta world. Only aliens that cannot be compatible with even the most basic laws of life and death will be abandoned here. After endless years of accumulation, the area of Hades Beach is comparable to the entire Hades Sea, and there are countless old antiques and monsters hidden in it. How deep the water here is, ordinary gods dare not even think about it. No one has ever made such a bold statement to conquer this place. But it can be seen that Wright's first step was steady and ruthless, giving the entire Hades Beach a solid warning. Okay, things here are done. We have to hurry up and complete the remaining 3 cities. With the illumination of the holy flame of the dead, although this area has not been completely fenced off, it is no longer dangerous. Wright and his men quickened their pace and headed towards the Hades Sea. According to the order, shouldn't we build the Dark City next? Why do we have to build the dirty city by the sea? Wright heard Lilith's question and turned around, walking backwards while explaining to her. The underground city cluster is a concept, but the specific location of the city needs to be investigated on site. The Holy Flame Bone City is very important, because it is the last step of filtering and decomposition, and it is also the pass that separates the Holy Light World from the Nether Beach. So its location is functional, and must be nailed directly at the border. As for the Dirty City, it is half nailed. Because it must be by the sea, it must be made into a city like a harbor city. Half of the area is in the sea, and half of the area is on the beach. As for the Dark City, on the contrary, the location is the least considered. It only needs to be nailed between the Holy Flame Bone City and the Dirty City. So, we have to build the Dirty Harbor City first. Emily, who was also listening carefully at the side, was suddenly stunned. Hey, I suddenly found that the 3 cities you designed are similar. Similar? What? Emily said while counting on her fingers. You just said that the Dirty City is a harbor city and must be built by the sea. Does it correspond to the Kedros Harbor City we have been to? And the Holy Flame Bone City, does it correspond to the Holy City? As for the Dark City, it seems to correspond to the Elf Imperial Capital. And the Lava Dragon City, it corresponds to the Dragon Island. Right. You are 1-to-1 correspondence. Is there any explanation? Wright laughed when he heard this, and then gave Emily a knife. It's just a coincidence. Don't let your imagination run wild all day long. While the group was chatting, they came to the coast of the Underworld Sea. In front of them was the endless Sea of Death, with the tides rising and falling, and the waves surging and returning. Although it was just a quick glance, I felt that the endless loneliness and silence had infected my soul. Emily wanted to say something, but suddenly remembered the knife just now, so she could only mutter there. Lilith was a little curious, so she came up. What are you talking about? No, I just mean, the Underworld Sea is also a sea. So what? Sister Lilith, which one do you think is more powerful, the sea we encountered in that world or the Underworld Sea? Lilith was stunned for a moment, and then looked at the Sea of Death thoughtfully. At this time, Wright was busy selecting a site. He had full authority over the power of death, and was not afraid of anything here. But others could only hide under the light of the holy flame of the dead soul, to avoid the erosion of death. Wright soared into the air, and after circling around, he finally selected a cliff. This place is surrounded by mountains and rivers, with tigers and dragons crouching, high in the south, low in the north, rich in the east, and noble in the west. This is a top-notch blessed land. Lilith's mouth twitched. What are you talking about? Where are the east, south, west, and north in the Hades Beach? How can there be a blessed land in the Hades Beach? Wright drooped his face. Okay, this place is easy to defend, and difficult to attack. As long as a firepower point is set up on the high ground here, all the surrounding areas can be covered. And the bay here is also suitable for building a city. I'm very satisfied. What about those just now? It feels more mysterious and classy when you say it that way. Lilith rolled her eyes at Wright and continued to watch the tide of the Sea of Death. Seeing that no one paid attention to him, Wright had to mutter to himself and come to the place, and then commanded the monsters to start building the altar. After the construction of the altar in the center of the dungeon was completed, Wright threw the dirty mushroom and the dungeon construction scroll directly into it. In addition, he began to communicate with the Underworld Sea and introduce the seawater with strong death power into the sea city. With the energy filling, the dirty mushroom rose from the ground and turned into a towering giant in the blink of an eye. The surrounding dungeon walls also continued to rise and finally formed a huge seaside city. In the part in the water, there is also a huge gate to control the in and out of seawater. If Wright wants, He can completely close the gate and turn it into a harbor city with a small inland sea. In this way, the dead sea water containing the power of corruption can be introduced and purified and decomposed in batches. Wright stretched out his hand and pointed, and the shadow of the dirty Mushroom King fell into the city. This big toad seems to like this place very much. Wright flew to the high ground and looked in the direction of the Holy Flame Bone City. In the middle, build a dark dungeon, and it will be functionally ready for use. Chapter 355. Optimized Dead Beast. Boom boom boom. After building the second dirty harbor, Wright selected the location of the Dark City and prepared to take people there. Unexpectedly, just when they wanted to leave, a roar was heard in the underworld sea. Wright looked into the distance and saw a huge monster swimming towards him. The huge and fat body actually drove the waves of the entire underworld sea, forming a small tsunami. Gugwa. The dirty Mushroom King transformed into a divine shadow, puffed up his toad belly, and suddenly sprayed a water cannon towards the incoming tsunami, blasting away the entire giant wave. The huge monster in the sea also revealed its true face. It turned out to be a giant catfish, covered with smelly black mud, as if it had crawled out of a stinky ditch. Lilith flashed her wings and flew to Wright's side, pinching her nose and asked, "How can there be such a thing in this underworld sea?" I don't know much about it. Wright didn't know much about the underworld sea. Fortunately, he now has the full power of death in the entire nether sea. He drew out his Sunlight greatsword and knocked 3 times at the mountain under his feet. "Show up quickly." A translucent figure suddenly emerged from the nether sea and floated in front of Wright. Lilith took a look and found that it was the one who represented the harvest among the 4 death gods last time. "You have all the power of death, and you can actually summon the death god. Normal business exchanges, of course. If it is beyond their duties, then they have the right to refuse. To put it bluntly, we are a sewage treatment company that cooperates with their Nether Sea Limited company. In order to help them with the project, I took the executive authority of their company, which is convenient for me to enter and exit their company and to check the information, as well as some rights within the scope of authority." Harvest opened his mouth and uttered the muttering of the dead, and the tone seemed to be a little emotional. Wright pointed to the big fat catfish that was staring at the sea outside the harbor city and asked, "What is this thing?" "It is a dead beast, an individual born in the Nether Sea. Things can be born in the Sea of Death. You have dealt with the crisis of the Tree of Life, so you should know. The ultimate of life is death, and the ultimate of death is also life. Dead beasts are part of the self-healing of the Sea of Death. Some things that fall into the Sea of Death and are not easy to be assimilated by the Sea of Death will be attacked and destroyed by dead beasts. If the dead beasts cannot handle it, then this thing will be piled up in the Sea of Death by the tide of death. This dead beast was born by the Sea of Death to solve the power of corruption. Unfortunately, it can't handle that power either, so it found you and chose to cooperate with you." Wright stroked his chin. "In other words, this big catfish is useless now?" "In theory, yes. It wouldn't be long before it would be attacked and swallowed by other dead beasts and return to part of the Sea of Death." Wright raised his eyebrows. The will of the Sea of Death really has no mercy at all. Just like an absolutely rational machine intelligence brain, processes that have no value of existence will be wiped out as soon as possible to release computing power again. In that case, I'll take it. Harvest was very confused. He couldn't understand what Light wanted with such a dead beast. As if he saw the other party's confusion, Light grinned. "It just so happens that I need someone to collect the power of corruption from the Nether Sea and transport it to the city for processing. With it, I don't have to spend time and effort to create a new monster. After all, I got the authority over the swamp hell by exploiting loopholes. It's naturally not as fair as the dead beast of the Nether Sea. From the perspective of overall stability, it is more preferable. What's more, I think this fat catfish seems to have good combat power and the ability to manipulate the waves of the Nether Sea near the coast. It just so happens that I can also work part-time as the city defense general of my dirty harbor city. Since you insist, I can." Harvest nodded slightly, and the phantom returned to the Nether Sea and then disappeared. Instead, it was replaced by the death binding that I met last time. With his appearance, Countless chains appeared in the underworld sea, and they were wrapped around the dead catfish like the tentacles of an octopus. Even though this guy was extremely slimy, he soon became a huge meat dumpling under the binding of countless chains. Binding used the chain to lift the fat catfish in the air and transported it to the gate of the dirty harbor. "Thank you very much, just put it in the sea." Wright quickly flew forward and landed on the gate. Binding seemed to be particularly friendly to Wright and pulled out one of the iron chains as thick as a finger and sent it to Wright. The moment Wright grabbed the chain, all the chains on the dead catfish disappeared, but the binding force did not disappear, but penetrated into the skin, bones, and soul of the dead beast. The slender iron chain also dissipated in Wright's hand, but Wright could feel the control over the dead beast. It's really convenient. This fat catfish is not bad, but it's far from Thunderbolt. Light bowed deeply to the restraint. "Thank you for your help." The restraint also bowed and then dissipated on the dark sea. After the death disappeared, Light jumped to the top of the catfish's head and stomped on his broad forehead with his foot. "Catfish, catfish, there will be surplus every year. It's a good omen to accept you. You just work here honestly in the future. It won't be long before you can get a promotion and a raise, become the general manager, serve as an executive, marry a beautiful and rich woman, and reach the peak of your life." Light's words are not empty words. If the fat catfish continues to send the power of corruption to the dirty harbor, it can also get its own share of food from the decomposition. As long as it keeps eating, its strength will become stronger and stronger. The most important thing is that it is a low-level employee who is about to be optimized in the head office. Now it has the opportunity to find a regular job in its own partner company. It is definitely lucky. Although the fat catfish didn't quite understand, he seemed to know that he didn't have to disappear. He rolled happily in the near sea and soon turned the good sea water into a mud puddle. Great. This is indeed a good match for our filthy harbor. Work hard and give full play to your nature. With such a general to defend the city, although the safety is not greatly improved, fortunately the work efficiency is guaranteed. Moreover, the filthy harbor itself is on the edge of the nether sea. With such a big backer here, it does not need too strong a defense. After Wright arranged the filthy harbor, he returned to the city. "Let's go. We have to build the dark city quickly and open up the entire decomposition process." Chapter 356. If it's light, it's my responsibility. Ask for monthly ticket. At the center of Holy Flame Bone City and the filthy harbor, Wright and the others stopped. After selecting the location, he began to let the last dark monster start to build the core altar of the dungeon. He stood there, first looking in the direction of the harbor city, and then looking at Holy Flame Bone City. This will form a line, and I will use this line as the diameter. Draw a semicircle with the dark city as the origin, and build a strategic wall with a fast military road on it. Then build Dragon City at the middle point of the arc. Build a strategic wall from Dragon City to Dark City. In this way, we can travel between the four cities at the fastest and quickest speed. At the same time, I will hide the channel for transmitting energy under the strategic wall of the diameter. And such a semicircle will be the fundamental core of our development in the Hades Beach. Wright opened his arms to the distance. It won't be long before we can conquer a large territory. We want to make a big noise, make it known to everyone, and make the Hades Beach restless. Let the Gate of Truth know us. This is the declaration of war I issued to him, and he has to accept it, even if he doesn't want to. Lilith was a little jealous. "You are really willing to invest for Jonah." Wright held her in his arms. "Not only for her, I'm also secretly collecting information about the blasphemers, looking for an opportunity to completely eradicate this scourge. I will never let anyone, any existence, hurt you, no matter how powerful they are." Lilith fell softly into Wright's arms and hummed softly. At such a warm and sweet moment, Emily ran over at an inappropriate time. Okay, do you have to do this in the Hades Beach? Let's finish the matter quickly and go to the Elf Empire as soon as possible. To be honest, even if it is protected by the holy flame of the dead, I don't like it here. Then punish you to stay here. Hey. No. Lilith chuckled and patted Wright's chest. Okay, let's get down to business. It just so happened that the central altar of the dungeon had been repaired at this time. Wright reluctantly let go of Lilith and came to the altar. I need a top quality one. Emily, jump in. I don't want to. Emily ran away in a flash, and Wright shook his fist at her, then threw in mushrooms of corresponding attributes and city building scrolls, just like he had just built the harbor. Then Wright began to communicate with the Dark God realm according to the content of the contract. As the powerful dark power filled the dungeon altar, the dark mushroom also began to grow wildly. In a blink of an eye, it grew to the same level as the other two magic mushrooms. As the dark mushroom grew, the entire dungeon also rose from the ground and took shape quickly under Wright's control. At this time, Wright was already familiar with the root, and he stretched out his hand and pointed at the dark mushroom. The shadow of the fallen fungus master descended and enveloped the dark mushroom. To be honest, this big black mushroom reminds me of the destruction mushroom, but the appearance and color are similar, and the powers contained in it are different. Destruction mushroom? Emily blinked her innocent eyes. Don't dragons have the power of destruction? If you add the power of destruction of dragons to it, won't it be a complete destruction mushroom? Wright's eyes widened, and finally slapped his forehead. Damn it, sometimes you really can't help but believe it. Your intuition seems to be more useful. Wright silently wrote down this idea and planned to find a time to realize it and see if he could replicate it. After all, magical plants that need to explode, such as red peppers, cherry bombs, corn cannons, etc., all need to be filled with the element of destruction to really hurt the gods. How strange. Wright heard Jenny muttering in a low voice and immediately came over. What's wrong? No, I just feel a little strange. I didn't expect this city to be built so smoothly. During the whole process, you didn't do anything weird to surprise people. To be honest, I was looking forward to what will happen this time. Wright laughed. How do you know that I won't make trouble? Emily next to him sighed. Jenny, why do you provoke him? Jenny has her own ideas, but he is the son of the Holy Light Church and has signed a contract with the Underworld Sea, which led to the special features of the two underground cities just now. But what means can he use in the Dark City? Wright shook his finger. You have this question, which means you don't understand the power of darkness. I ask you, what is darkness? Jenny answered as a matter of course. Darkness is the absence of light. Wrong, pure absence of light is black. Darkness is not. Darkness is a state of weak light. Do you know why corruption and darkness are linked together? Because the first thing in the world to be infected by the power of corruption is light. After corruption, light becomes darkness. It's like there is an oil lamp emitting light, but for some reason, or the quality of the lamp oil has deteriorated, the wick has become shorter, and it is not as bright as before. At this time, everyone will say that the light has dimmed. You see, although darkness is often mentioned together, they are actually two different things. One is pure lack of light, which is the opposite of light, and darkness is the light of corruption. As he spoke, the entire Dark Corruption City had been completely completed. Wright walked to the Dark Mushroom and stretched out his hand to press it. The reason why the Dark Corruption City is placed between the Filthy Harbor and the Holy Flamebone City is also for this reason. It is a buffer, a transition, and also another choice for light. But since darkness is also light, it must be under my control. Even if it has been corrupted, it is no exception. This is why it is the center of the entire territory. The rolling power of light flowed along Wright's palm and was injected into the dark mushroom. Immediately afterwards, a large number of magic mushrooms began to emerge from the underground city and soon gathered into large clusters. Although these magic mushrooms are in the nether beach, they emit a faint glow and accumulate energy. What is this? The source of energy, a powerful assistant in our expansion. Its name is the Dark Light Magic Mushroom. Wright picked one of them and placed it in the palm of his hand. Even on the nether beach, it can gather the power of light and become the source of energy supply for other magic plants. Although the underground city cluster has a huge energy source, we don't have to worry about it. But if we want to go out and fight in the nether beach, the energy supply of magic plants will be a big problem. After all, this is the nether beach. Magic plants that are based on life cannot replenish themselves here. It is wishful thinking to want to make a living in the nether beach with the energy of a world. We still have to draw energy from the nether beach itself as a long-term combat energy. And the Dark Light Magic Mushroom is the solution to all these problems. Chapter 357 Emily's Despair. Please vote for me. Extract energy from the beach of Hades and make it a strategic resource. Lilith looked at the dark light mushroom in Wright's hand and couldn't find a suitable adjective to praise his unparalleled idea. Are you really going to get something for free? Of course. Wright held the dark light mushroom in his hand. What door of truth? Getting something for free is the truth. It's the hard truth. And this thing. Wright suddenly pressed the dark light mushroom and threw it out. The moment the little thing landed, it suddenly emitted a dazzling light and then exploded. Boom. After the dust and smoke, a 2-meter wide explosion crater was left on the bone slag beach. It will explode. Why should it explode? If our position is captured by the enemy, won't these strategic resources become the enemy's supplement? Then, just explode and turn the magic mushroom field into a mine array. Wright spread his hands. Besides, mushrooms will explode. Isn't it a common thing? This mushroom not only explodes, but is also poisonous. The enemies that are blown up will be slowed down, burned, poisoned. There are also various negative auras and negative game blessings. I guarantee that, if they eat one, they will feel uncomfortable all over. I wish I could pull out the guy who planted the mushrooms and tear them into pieces. Lilith quickly grabbed Wright's arm. Why are you so excited all of a sudden? Wright let out a long breath. It's okay, I just remembered a furry little thing. Damn, we can lose the team battle. That thing must die. But now it's my turn to disgust others with mushrooms. So happy. Emily picked a mushroom from the ground, pressed it like Wright, and then threw it out. As a result, nothing happened. Why doesn't it work? Because there is a triggering technique. Otherwise, wouldn't I have been hit by a group of landmines in our own home? Wright rolled his eyes. I'm not interested in self-abuse. Only the stimulated mushrooms will explode when touched. Under normal circumstances, even if they are attacked by external forces and blown into pieces, they will only become nutrients for other magic plants. Lilith also squatted down and pulled out a plant. I really didn't expect that magic mushrooms could survive in such a place. Yes, because the birth of magic mushrooms itself has something to do with the underworld. To survive from death. From the perspective of plants, magic mushrooms are the skeletons of the plant world. Lilith agreed with Wright's statement. I think you shouldn't bring those magic plants or magical plants here to plant. At that time, we may have to solve the problem of adaptability. Magic mushrooms can survive here, and those plants with a strong breath of life may be like Emily and Jenny, who can only survive within the range of the holy flame of the dead. This may not be very beneficial to your advancement plan. Why don't you just use the dark light magic mushroom as a template, and develop a new magic mushroom system? Wright stroked his chin. Not impossible. It's like two operating systems. If you have to complete the code migration, the future maintenance cost will also rise. And because of the different application environments, you may need to move back and forth at that time. Just doing environmental adaptation and adjustment will be a hassle. Simply, just build two systems. In this way, there will be no one to accommodate the other. Emily rubbed her head. I have a bad feeling that you are going to come up with something weird again. Have we finished the construction? Can we go back? Wright shook his head. No, we are just getting started. As he spoke, he came to the towering dark light mushroom and reached out to press it. First, we need to connect the cores of the 3 dungeons. As Wright exerted his strength, the 3 tall magic mushrooms seemed to have some kind of response. Then, the whole area began to tremble slightly. In the underground, invisible to people, the Hiffy began to grow wildly, and the 3 cities began to run in both directions. After a short period of rapid growth, the Hiffy of the 3 core magic mushrooms intertwined and blended together, forming an existence similar to an underground pipeline. The magic mushrooms in the Holy Flame Bone City echoed with the life mushroom branches in the central underground city on the side of the Holy Light World, and completed the entanglement and fusion of Hiffy. The moment the 4 underground cities were connected, Wright snapped his fingers in the direction of the dirty harbor. A large amount of corrupt power mixed in the water of the Nether Sea was absorbed by the core magic mushrooms, and began to further decompose and purify. After completing this part of their work, this energy will be transmitted along the underground Hiffy to the dark underground city, where Wright and his team are. Look. Such vigorous power. Emily pointed at the dark mushroom that began to glow inside and shouted loudly, "Wow, high concentration energy that can be seen with the naked eye." Wright hugged his shoulders and smiled with satisfaction. "That's right. This is the gift that Madam Corruption is going to give to the Gate of Truth. It is an energy produced at the cost of the fall of the world. How can it not be powerful? How can it not be rich?" Emily also imitated Wright's posture and stood beside him. "Humph, it's a pity that she actually wanted to get involved in our world. In the end, she fell. The energy she carefully prepared also belongs to us." "Hey, what are those separated?" Wright looked at the roots of the dark mushroom. "Those are impurities. After all, what our world needs is the pure world power after stripping away filth, corruption and death. And the power of filth, corruption and death is what the 3 core mushrooms need. They will devour this part of the power and store it in the underground city as the main energy source for the development of the city. But in addition to these pure powers, there will still be some impurities that cannot be digested and decomposed." Emily said thoughtfully, "It's a pity to waste it. It would be great if I could use it to do something." Lilith was heartbroken after hearing this. "It's over, Emily. Your mind has been completely polluted by Wright." Emily hugged her head. Hey. Really?" Jenny next to her also nodded. "Well, I thought Wright said this with a pinched throat." Emily covered her face. "Then am I not finished?" Wright said with a dark face and displeasure. "Why are you finished just like me? You are so rude." Emily looked at him through her fingers. "So, you don't plan to send these impurities to the 4th dungeon to be built as materials for manufacturing troops, right? After all, the dragon clan is very tolerant and can make anything into a dragon. Just like the Chimera encountered in the Holy City and the Sage of Wisdom and the like." Wright suddenly widened his eyes. Hey. Don't say it. Your current thinking logic. Don't say it. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 358, Creating the Most Evil Dragon. Lilith understood Wright's behavior of not letting go of the impurities and waste generated during the purification process, while Jenny was shocked. Emily, on the other hand, thought it was natural. Emily, realizing this, fell into deep self-doubt. "You are a teachable child." Wright was very satisfied with Emily's transformation and turned to show off to Lilith and the others. "Look, I told you, I'm definitely not the only one who thinks this way. I don't quite agree with your approach of assimilating one of your own kind when you don't have any of your own kind." Lilith glanced at Emily, "But it's already like this, so it can only be like this." Emily hugged Lilith and cried, "No, Sister Lilith, don't give up on me." "Hey, Lilith, you can't go on like this." Jenny reached out and helped Emily up. "Why don't you come and believe in the great holy goddess of light with me? I believe that with the grace and teachings of Lady Afra, you will be able to turn over a new leaf and become a new person." Wright couldn't help but wave his fist in protest. "What do you mean? Why do you say that I'm not a human being just because I think logically like me?" Emily waved her hand to refuse. Forget it. I still won't cause trouble for Afra." Wright was very unhappy. "Hey, the main project has been completed. Do you want to stay here or come with me to build the final defense project? Or if you feel uncomfortable, you can go back early." Lilith and the other two looked at each other and finally decided, "Let's go with you. We've been here for so long anyway, so we can go a little longer." "Okay then." Wright immediately took the 3 women out of the dark dungeon and flew forward at a right angle. After calculating the approximate location, Wright stopped on a flat ground. This is not bad. Although the location was chosen, it was a pity that the accompanying followers had already been arranged in the corresponding dungeons. In desperation, Wright took out the Dragon Slayer's Lament and threw it to Emily. "Go. Build an altar in the center of the dungeon." "Why me? You are a full-service magician, so it will be faster to build." Emily wanted to cry, but had no tears. Even if it is an ordinary magician, it is a guest of honor in any empire or any force. "How come I'm a construction worker here? What are you talking about?" The working class is the most glorious. You can be a working class. You can be happy. Emily pouted and began to carve magic patterns on the ground with the dragon slaying sword, and then activated magic to build a simple altar. If I had known, I would have chosen to go home by myself just now. There is no regret medicine in life. Besides, even if you go back, there are still a lot of civil engineering projects waiting for you to do. Wright took the dragon slaying sword from her hand and stabbed it into the altar. Hey, aren't you going to use magic mushrooms this time? No way, I don't have any magic mushrooms with dragon attributes, and the 3 specially cultivated magic mushrooms have been used up. Wright grasped the handle of the sword and grinned. But what's needed here is not magic mushrooms, but knives. Amidst the humming sound, a huge amount of energy from the dragon realm surged out of the magic circle. Wright took the opportunity to throw several dungeon scrolls in together and shouted, "Haha, time for free stuff has come." A huge city rose from the ground, and in a blink of an eye, its scale was comparable to the 3 main cities. At the same time, 3 majestic strategic city walls also rose from the ground and spread towards the 3 main cities. After connecting with the 3 main cities, they continued to rise, and finally filled the gaps between the 3 main cities. Under the massive energy of the dragon realm, with the 4 dungeons as the points, Wright drew a large semicircle on the beach of Hades. One more time. 3 mushrooms gather at the top. With Wright's roar, 3 myceliums of different colors actually rose from the altar of the dungeon, entwined with each other to form a huge polymer. The impurities produced by purification also surged out of the 3-color polymer. Seeing these indescribable impurities gathering together again, Lilith and the others retreated one after another. What exactly is this thing? Unexpectedly, Wright also shook his head. I don't know, it's hard to define. The reason why the underworld cannot digest the power of corruption is because of the existence of these impurities. I think this is probably the residual poison of the world's wreckage. After all, Madame Corruption's power of corruption was obtained by destroying the world. Moreover, her original purpose was to make the great will of the underworld incompatible and finally recognize her identity. Lilith heard the words and stopped the 2 of them and retreated far away. This kind of thing is very dangerous. Maybe it's not something that can be created by the conceptual level, but it is given by the indescribable gate of truth to achieve its purpose. Whatever it is, it's mine now. Wright smiled and manipulated the magic circle of the dungeon, based on these impurities, and began to summon the chaotic, the twisted, the fallen. Gather here in the name of the dragon race. Answer my call. Come to the world now. Show your last surplus value. Under Wright's crazy spell, magic circles began to overlap and converge. Impurities began to twist and change, and finally slowly took shape under the control of the magic circle, turning into a hideous and terrifying dragon. Although its energy fluctuations were no different from those of ordinary dragons, it exuded an ominous aura. Lilith hid in the distance and looked at the other party carefully. This giant dragon, even if it has no combat power, just running to the enemy and exploding can cause unimaginable damage to the opponent. Yes, and as the impurities continue to increase, more giant dragons like this will appear. At that time, no matter who wants to attack our base, they will have to get through them first. Wright reached out and patted the dragon's scales. I'm going to give them a name. The worst dragon clan. Lilith looked at Wright in horror. You touched it? Aren't you afraid of being contaminated? How could I be afraid of this kind of thing? Wright spread out his hands, and there was indeed no change on them. My concept is emergence. Do you think there will be a lack of impurities when people gather together? If you are afraid of impurities, how can you control emergence? Wright jumped onto the city gate and waved his hand. I'm going to plant a large area of dark light mushrooms here. When the area is enough, build a new city and a new strategic city wall. Then continue to plant mushrooms. Build a city, plant mushrooms again, and build a city again. It won't be long before you can conquer a large territory here. In short, plant the land first, expand if there is not enough land, and continue to plant the land after expansion. This cycle repeats forever. Lilith looked at Wright's back and couldn't help but exclaimed, why do I feel like you can really take down the entire Hades beach? Is it an illusion? Wright laughed and pointed to the front. Then the first step. Meet the enemy. Lilith and others were shocked. They quickly jumped onto the city wall and looked in the direction of Wright's finger. They found that there were actually a large number of undead creatures rushing towards this side. What's going on? Monsters are attacking the city, Wright said with a smile. While carrying the dragon's lair, we have a lot of high concentration energy flowing here, so of course it will be very attractive. Not to mention, someone wants to take the opportunity to test us. Chapter 359. Human disaster at Ming Beach. So many undead creatures. Emily looked at the undead monsters that were surging like a tide and couldn't help but exclaimed, I've only seen it in books before, and that was a tide of magical beasts that was enough to destroy a country. Why do I feel that the ones here are more terrifying? The undead creatures that can be born in the Hades Beach are terrible existences that endanger one side if they are thrown into a lower world at will. Lilith patiently answered her, at least, they are all disaster level. The leader among them is likely to be a natural disaster level. What should we do then? Lilith looked at Wright with some concern. Don't our 3 cities have to operate all the time? If so, won't they be full of energy all the time? And will they always attract a large number of undead creatures to attack? Wright laughed. Not only that. After all, in addition to the rich power of the undead, there is also the power of corruption and filth. In the Hades Beach, there are also many people who covet these energies. By then, big and small will come to join in the fun. Emily shuddered. What should we do? We can't stay here forever to guard against attacks from these guys, right? To be honest, I still prefer our world over there. Of course not. Wright gave her a surprised look. What are you thinking? I don't want to stay here forever. It's dark and smelly here. Who doesn't like the Elf Empire, the coastal city, and the holy city of the Holy Light Church? I'm crazy. I'm staying here to deal with these things. Then, what should we do? Wright snapped his fingers, and the most evil dragon soared into the air, flew towards the wave of monsters, and began to spit dragon breath directly. The powerful force and highly infectious dragon breath blocked the wave of monsters on the spot. You know me, I just like to be a hands-off boss. The reason why I spent so much energy, made so many preparations, and got so many equipment is for one thing. That is, when I'm not in the underworld beach, this place can also operate smoothly. Realize the fully automatic system of the underworld beach underground city cluster. Defense mode is of course also under consideration. Wright snapped his fingers, and a large number of dark light magic mushrooms suddenly grew inside and outside the city wall, and began to spread at an extremely exaggerated speed, and soon covered the bodies of the destroyed undead creatures on the ground. Afterwards, these magic mushrooms quickly absorbed the remains of these undead creatures, and became much larger. And these magic mushrooms in the city are constantly growing, and beginning to accumulate a lot of energy. Wright picked up one of the magic mushrooms and put it in his hand for magic modification. Soon, a large spray mushroom that can spray spore shells appeared in Wright's hand. Wright was very satisfied with his transformation and threw it on the city wall. Mycelium was entangled on the big spray mushrooms. Emily and others took a closer look and found that all these mycelium came from the dark light magic mushrooms inside and outside the city. With the injection of energy, the big spray mushrooms began to fire wildly and began to split and increase in value. 1 became 2, 2 became 4, 4 became 8. They lined up on the city wall, and through the continuous reproduction and proliferation of mycelium, all the city walls were covered with big spray mushrooms in a blink of an eye. At this time, the most evil dragon also received Wright's order and fluttered its wings back to the underground city, and the undead monsters that were repelled came back again. However, this time, they were facing batches of big spray mushrooms, crazy spore bombardment. The intensity of this attack was no less than that of the most evil dragon just now. Even if a monster was lucky enough to escape from the artillery fire, it would be blown to pieces by the dark light magic mushrooms on the ground and become nutrients for other magic mushrooms. After such a roar, the wave of undead creatures just now disappeared completely. The debris on the ground was also quickly devoured. The nutritional energy obtained was also transmitted back to the underground city cluster through the mycelium and became a strategic reserve. Lilith and others were stunned and could not recover for a long time. You also. Emily pointed at the big spray mushroom on the wall and could not think of a suitable adjective for a while. Jenny took a deep breath and said faintly, "Why do I feel that, after fighting for so long, and firing so many cannons, you actually made a profit in the end? That kind of intensive firepower should have consumed a mountain of magic crystals, or even more. But," she looked at the open space inside and outside the city, the huge dark light magic mushrooms, that looked like haystacks, which stored huge energy, and could be used for various consumption. "You will earn more money the more you fight," Wright said as if it was a matter of course. "That's right. The more you fight, the more money you will earn. What's the difference between losing a war and losing it?" Jenny's face was full of shock. "So, making money from war, is this the way to make money?" Lilith came over and gave Jenny a knife. "Don't follow his logic. Do you want to be the second Emily?" Emily looked desperate. "What should I do? I just thought the same as Jenny. It's over. Am I hopeless?" While the three were arguing, they suddenly heard a strange sound coming from the direction of the altar. They looked back and found that several spore blisters had grown in the place where the three demons gathered. What is that?" Wright glanced and laughed. That's part of the self-evolution system." "Self-evolution?" "Yes." Wright patted the big mushroom next to him. "Magic mushrooms. Of course they are living things. Living things can think. But the individual magic mushrooms, due to innate reasons, have relatively low intelligence. You can refer to the situation of the tree people. They have to grow for so many years before they can have intelligence and self-awareness. What's more, these small magic mushrooms, however, I connected them with mycelium to form a new integrated thinking framework collection. In this way, they can think. And as the number of access to the magic mushroom mycelium network increases, their thinking ability will continue to improve. In order not to waste this part of wisdom, in order to give full play to subjective initiative, and in order to squeeze the surplus value to the last bit, I gave them orders to let them generate solutions intelligently, based on the enemies they encounter, and the materials they absorb, and cultivate new varieties of magic mushrooms. Wright slowly spread his hands. "In the place of constant fighting in the Hades Beach, what kind of tribe will they evolve into? I'm really looking forward to the future of magic mushrooms." The three women looked at the spore bubbles that were about to mature and shuddered. "Is this a disaster for the Nether Beach?" "No, this is a man-made disaster for the Nether Beach." Chapter 360. Emily is a gullible person. After everyone returned to the Holy Light World from the Holy Flamebone City, Lilith looked back from time to time. Wright couldn't help but tease. "Why, you can't bear to leave? We just came back like this, leaving it alone. Nothing will happen, right? Don't worry, although the underground city system of the Hades Beach is not perfect, it has been carefully designed by me. Nothing will happen. Even if a strong enemy invades, I can sense it at the first time." Unexpectedly, Lilith waved her hands again and again. "No, no, no," I said. "Nothing will happen to the Hades Beach, right? Of course it will, and it must happen, and it must be a big thing." Wright drew a circle in the air with his fingers. "I did so much just to make a nest. Only if this nest is made well, I won't be empty-handed when the time comes. I may not be able to fish out the gate of truth this time, but it's good to catch 3 or 2 apostles. I'm not greedy." Lilith opened her mouth and finally chose to remain silent. Because of the power bestowed by the indescribable, the apostles are above the ordinary concept level. Are you fishing for fish? However, Lilith understood the purpose of Wright's doing this. He was a person who particularly hated the situation where the enemy was in the dark and I was in the light. If the enemy was ready to fight him, soldiers against soldiers and generals against generals, he would be happy to play a game with the other party. Even if many rules were not fair, even if the other party had some first-hand advantages. Just like the First Empire. According to his strength, it was easy to destroy the other party quickly and efficiently. But he still chose to win this war step by step. There were some goals that he needed to achieve, but in fact he still had some chess mentality in it. But if the enemy insisted on hiding in the dark and wanted to take the opportunity to sneak attack and play dirty tricks, then Wright would enter a violent mode and start to target the other party crazily. Try every way and means to compress the enemy's living space and force the other party to fight him head on. Lilith had asked Wright before, but he said that this was a stress response. It was in his bones, and there was no way to cure his anxiety caused by insufficient artillery fire and panic caused by insufficient resource and food reserves. Looking back at the holy flame bone city for the last time, Lilith sighed. Poor gate of truth, they really chose the wrong way and angered a crazy person. Then, they will naturally be tortured by this person's hysteria. I can't sleep well, and they can't sleep either. Wright smiled sinisterly, saying something that only Lilith understood, and returned to the central underground city. Here, the huge life mushroom branch is thriving. 3 branches have been sent to the Hades beach and planted successfully. The entire industrial chain has also begun to operate. The endless world power is transmitted by the mycelium pipeline and injected into the body of the life mushroom branch, and then turned to the life mushroom body. There, the world power will feed back to the holy light world and promote the repair of the world. Just keep this strength. It won't be long before the holy light world can be repaired. At that time, we can start the world upgrade plan. Wright stood in front of the life mushroom branch with his hands on his waist and made a bold statement. The holy light world will become the holy light realm, and finally the realm of light. Lilith took his arm and said, before that, I think you should help the holy light goddesses to complete their transformation from gods of law to gods of rules. Oh, that's right. As the main gods of the world, they should indeed be promoted. Wright slapped his forehead and said, I've been so busy lately that I forgot about this. As the main gods of the holy light world, Aphra and Jonah are the faces of this world. If the world is promoted, it would be a bit unreasonable for them to still be gods of law. Moreover, without the ability of gods of rules, it would be quite difficult to constrain such a large intermediate world. For example, now Jonah is so busy that she can't find anyone every day. Although Aphra is too lazy and can't do anything, it also proves from the side that it is too hard to manage the entire world with the ability of gods of rules. If you can successfully promote to gods of rules, many complicated and repetitive tasks can be completed more simply and quickly by revising the rules of God. Not to mention, Jonah also has the authority of law and is also the main god of the world. Being promoted to the rule class will have a great effect on liberating her labor force. Wright stretched out his hand to hold Lilith's slender waist and whispered in her ear, when Jonah is promoted successfully, the work will not be so busy. In the future, we can work together as 3 people more often. How do you think about the day you are promoted? Lilith rolled her eyes at Wright. Hate it. What are you thinking about all day? 3 people together? Emily, who was next to him, heard the noise and turned her head and asked, what 3 people? What are 3 people doing together? Wright glared at her. Play. What are you playing? Is it fun? Go away. It's adults' business, children. Don't ask about it. Emily puffed out her chest angrily. Am I a child? Wright looked at Emily and frowned. Well, you are not a child anymore. How about this? I will arrange a trial for you. What do you think? Trial? Emily immediately became interested. What trial? When I was young. Are you old now? Ahem. Listen carefully. Wright stretched out his hand and gave her a knife, then cleared his throat and said, in my early years, when I was young and frivolous, I once created 3 holy weapons. One of them is the holy sword Sunlight that you are very familiar with. Among the other 2, one is very suitable for Alice, that is the Utopia. I now need you to take Alice to the far north, to the tribe of the Orcs, to find the holy weapon that I sealed. If Alice can get it and get her approval, she will perfectly replicate the strength in the dream to the present. At that time, there is no need to worry about her safety. Of course, there are difficulties and obstacles along the way. She is still relatively fragile before getting the Utopia. So you, the big sister, need to protect her. Is there any problem? When Emily heard that she could act with the lovely Alice or protect her as a sister, she nodded like a chicken pecking at rice. Yes, I do. Okay. Then go and prepare. You can pick whatever you want from the treasury of the elves. Or the holy light churches along the way will provide services for you. What are you waiting for? Hurry up and act. I'll go back and take a nap first and then find Alice to tell her the good news. Emily flew towards the exit of the cave with joy, and Lilith looked at her back with some worry. Is she really okay? Of course not. She's so impatient. Wright held Lilith's shoulder and said with a smile, "That's why I asked her to take Alice with her. Relatively speaking, she is more stable, and I feel more at ease." At this point, Wright looked at Jenny on the side. The latter felt his gaze and immediately retreated. "You don't have to find a way to get me away. I was planning to go out and continue looking for other witches. Actually, I want to give you something." Chapter 361 Choose a Good Day. Jenny was surprised to see Wright take out a card from his pocket and hand it to her. "What is this?" "It's a gift. Or, it's a reward for your help recently." Jenny took the card and found that it was a magic card. The texture was exactly the same as the Grey Wolf card set Emily often used. She turned the card over and saw a 7-color flower printed on it. "This is Jenny in the 7-colored flower. Do you remember the origin of your name?" Wright took out another set of blank cards and threw it to Jenny. "I asked the Lord of Fairy Tale to find this for you. It's a magical contract beast that suits your needs. But this is a flower, and it feels a bit strange to call it a contract beast. The fairy tale path is still being perfected, so you have to make do with it. To set the card, you need to go to the Dream Rift or the fairy tale subspace to conquer it yourself, just like Emily did. As for how to go to the Dream Rift, how to conquer new partners, and how to use these props, you have to find Emily and let her give it to you. Yes, I hope that at the beginning of the journey, you can travel with Emily and Alice for a while. It can also be regarded as helping me take care of them for a while. Is it okay?" Jenny looked at the 7-color flower on the card and liked it very much. For some reason, she felt that this flower was really compatible with her. "Of course, I'm very happy," Wright said with a smile when he saw her agree. "In fact, you can try to contract some magical plants, such as pea shooters, watermelon pitchers, corn cannons, etc. Maybe, in the future, you will become an alms queen with a large number of magical plant contract beasts. Enjoy the joy of one person forming an army. In addition, you are the witch nemesis, and you can flexibly use the power of the other 6 witches. Your upper limit is not low. Work hard. In the future, this world may need your power." Jenny was stunned holding the card. "Will the world need witches? We exist to destroy the world. With me, it won't." Jenny laughed and happily put the card away. "Since you said so, I will definitely find everyone. There is still one witch who has not been found among the 7 witches. That is, the demon-slaying witch Little Red Riding Hood." Of course, although Wright has long known who the true identity of the Blood Witch is, he has never had time to care about her. Wright can understand Jenny's decision. Among the witches around him, she and Emily are the only ones who are particularly persistent about other witches. To them, the victims of the witch plan who had the same miserable life story as them were their relatives whom they had never met. As the witch nemesis, Jenny chose to cooperate with Light, partly because of his kindness to witches and his good deeds of redeeming witches, but partly, it was to get the witch power replenishment from him. After all, with this backer, she could attack normally from now on without worrying about the replenishment of witch power. "If you find the remaining witches, you are welcome to bring them here." Light's fingertips were dancing with Light. "Now, I'm the only one who knows the full picture of the witch's plan and the conditions for all the witches' feasts. I'm also the only one who can lift the witch's curse and let them live an ordinary life. Moreover, I'm the only one who has the strength and ability to settle them." Jenny nodded heavily. "I will. Let me thank you on their behalf. Oh, by the way." Light raised a finger. "There is one thing you need to pay attention to. In addition to the Blood Witch and the Demon Witch, the Light Witch Cinderella is also on the run." "What?" I thought. Light laughed dryly and told Jenny the final details of the Holy City incident. "So, if the witch's curse is not truly lifted, but simply expelled, the consequence is that it will find a new host and give birth to a new victim. Under my instruction, the church has been searching and screening, but unfortunately it has not been found so far. So if you can find a new witch of light when you go out to find the witch this time, that would be great." "I understand. Don't worry, even if they don't want to come, I will find a way to bring them back." Wright raised his hand and said, "You should also pack your luggage. You can pick anything from the Elf Empire. By the way, keep an eye on Emily and don't let her do anything too outrageous." Jenny bowed deeply to Wright, then turned and left. Looking at the other person's back, Wright pinched his waist and sighed. Look at her. This girl Emily is a noble. She was fine before, but now she looks less and less like a noble. Really, I don't know who she learned this from. Lilith rolled her eyes at him. What do you think? A good noble lady has been assimilated by you into what she is now. I guess when she goes home to visit her family, her father won't be able to recognize his own daughter. Wright laughed and his hands became naughty again. So, do you think we should have sons or daughters in the future? You're so beautiful. Ask Jonah, isn't she going to give you 4 children? Then you can't fall behind. I'll give you 13. 1 for each of the demon worlds, okay? Wright hugged Lilith and laughed. I think the guys in the welcoming society will be very happy with your idea. However, the demons in the victims mutual aid society will have a headache. With so many offspring, the accounts will be complicated again. Lilith shook her head. Those demons in the mutual aid society have long given up the fantasy of getting their accounts back. Right. At this moment, a figure jumped down from the entrance of the cave. Wright looked back and saw that it was Emily riding the King of Unicorns, galloping towards him. Right. Emily, why are you back? Right. Go. Sister Jonah has something urgent to talk to you about. Wright was stunned for a moment. Jonah has something to do. Why doesn't she just send a divine decree to inform me? Sister Jonah said that she couldn't contact you. Lilith clapped her hands. Oh, it may be a problem with the underground city. And this strong energy fluctuation is easy to cause interference. You should go quickly. It seems to be urgent. Wright nodded slightly, took the Unicorn King from Emily, and then jumped on the horse. The Unicorn King hated the underground environment very much, and turned around, and ran towards the exit. As Wright went away, he did not forget to turn back and shout, Lilith, don't forget what happened on the day Jonah was promoted. Emily looked at Lilith blankly. Sister Lilith, what is he shouting for? Nothing. Let's go. Emily muttered. I always feel that you are hiding something from me. Lilith smiled and changed the subject. By the way, do you know what the urgent matter is? Well, I'm not sure. It seems that a messenger from the life god system has come and wants to take something back. Chapter 362. Don't argue if you can take action. The messenger of the god system of life wants to take back the crown of the king of the sun and the crown of the moon. Wright rode the Unicorn King and contacted Jonah as soon as he came out of the cave. They used prayer to communicate directly with the oracle. Although it consumed a lot of divine power, it was more convenient and faster. Are you kidding me? We spent so much effort and took such a big risk. We finally found it, and they want to go back. Besides, the 2 daughters of the King of the Sun are with us. How dare they want to go back? I have rejected them. Jonah's voice was a little tired. There were too many things happening in the holy light world recently. Although Wright had to chew the hard bones, Jonah was silently handling all the subsequent finishing, sorting, and aftermath work. The reason why Wright could always be so cool was all because Jonah handled and perfected some problems that he didn't notice behind his back. The complicated things had been dealt with almost, and Jonah could finally take a short break. She was going to accompany Light for a while to relieve her longing. Unexpectedly, the god of life came to cause trouble again. Hearing Jonah's weak voice, Light felt very distressed, and at the same time, he was extremely angry at the behavior of the god of life. Light rode the Unicorn King towards the direction of the elf capital, and the wind whistled in his ears. I'm about to reach the life mushroom, and I'll go directly to the god realm from there. I'll take care of the rest of the things. Don't worry. Leave that shitty messenger aside, and take a rest. After I deal with him, I'll take you to rest and relax for a while. It's okay for me, but you have to hurry up, otherwise Afra will fight with the other party. Light laughed when he heard it. Hahaha, okay. Fight. Fight first and then talk. Okay, anyway, hurry up, I'll go and see first. Jonah cut off the connection, and Light had already rushed into the elf capital. At this time, he did not bother to greet the elf queen, but rode the King of Unicorns directly to the island in the middle of the Lake of Life. After he turned over and dismounted, he came to the life mushroom in 3 or 2 steps, and stretched out his hand to press it. With the surge of rich life power, Wright's figure gradually faded, and then disappeared directly on the spot. When he opened his eyes again, he had already arrived in the holy light temple of the god realm. Unlike the previous summons, this time Wright did not just descend with consciousness, but arrived directly with his body. This is also entirely due to the tree of life system of the life god system. Otherwise it would not be possible with the current ability of the holy light god system. Of course, this behavior of bringing the creatures of the lower world to the god realm also consumes a lot of transmission energy. But now Wright has the nether sea sewage treatment project in hand, and he has high-end energy such as the power of the world, so he doesn't need this little bit of energy. He came here in person to show his skills fiercely and let the other party know what will happen if he offends him. Seeing Wright appear at the palace gate, the angels guarding the gate fell to their knees. Boss. A four-winged angel captain hurried out and knelt on one knee in front of Wright. Boss, Satan, take me to the reception room. Yes. These holy light angels also had a lot of resentment towards the messenger of the life god system. When they saw Wright coming, they seemed to have found their backbone, and they all became excited. The four-winged angel even trotted all the way and brought Wright to the reception room. Before they entered, they heard a fierce quarrel in the hall. The crown of the King of Flames is a sacred object of our life god system. We are very grateful that you found it, but you have to return it to its original owner. What's the matter with keeping it for yourself? The moon goddess's crown was taken away by Lady Moon when she defected, and it is also a sacred object of our life god system. After you seized it, you should also return it to us. How could you distribute it privately? Both artifacts belong to our life god system. The entire god realm, and even the entire realm, knows about this. Aren't you obviously playing tricks? Nonsense. Afra had no intention of showing weakness. You have lost these two artifacts for thousands of years. Why didn't you know to look for them at that time? Why didn't you realize that these were your sacred objects? Now that we have found them, do you remember that they are yours? You still talk as if you respect the king of the sun god so much. If you respect him so much, why did you exclude his two daughters after his death? Now that his daughters have been recognized by their father's artifacts, you jump out and talk about sacred objects. How shameless. Let me tell you, if you want to take the artifact from me, you can't. No way. Whether it's the crown of the Sun King or the crown of the Moon Goddess, don't even think about it. The messenger of the god of life slammed the table and stood up. Okay, since the Holy Light Court has this attitude, then we won't say anything more. If we can't reach an agreement at the negotiation table, then let's wait for the god war to start. Afra looked disdainful. Just as she was about to retort, she saw Wright walking in with a dark face. She quieted down and sat back in her seat obediently, looking at Wright with a harmless and aggrieved look on her face. The messenger of the god of life thought that Afra was frightened by the god war he mentioned and became complacent. He pointed at Afra and other gods of the Holy Light Court and said arrogantly, "Are you scared now? It's good that you are scared now. Let me tell you, the power of the god system of life is beyond your imagination. Don't think that you can look down on others just because you have developed rapidly recently. You are still far behind the old god system like us. If you present the two artifacts obediently, the god system of life will not treat you unfairly. You will get corresponding compensation and friendship with the god system of life. Believe me, becoming a friend of the god system of life will definitely benefit you in the future development of the Holy Light Court." How about it? Before he finished speaking, Wright drew out his Synlight greatsword and slapped him on the back of his head. With a bang, the messenger of the god system of life was smashed directly into the floor tiles, looking like he couldn't get out. Wright carried the Synlight greatsword on his shoulder and looked at the stunned Holy Light Goddess Afra. Why did you waste so much time talking to him? It's a waste of breath. Next time you encounter something like this, remember this. If you can fight, try not to quarrel. Have you learned it? Learned it. Chapter 363. Can it be called a bill if it's not outrageous? Wright sat on the main seat and watched the angels push the messenger out little by little. Although, this is also a god of law. Afra looked at the unconscious messenger and said in amazement, "You were too cruel this time. I feel much better after the fight." Wright twisted his shoulders. "Where's Jonah? I was annoyed by his noise, so I took Noah and Nora to rest inside." Wright narrowed his eyes slightly. "Then it's not unfair to be hit by the sword. If I had known, I would have used the blade instead of the sword body." Cutting it in half seems to be easier to deal with than it is now. So, this guy wants to take back the crown of the Sun King and the crown of the Moon Goddess together? Afra snorted coldly. Not only that, they also want to take Noi and Nora back. I guess they are afraid that without the blood of the Flame King, they can't exert the full power of these two artifacts, right? Shameless. And they seem to be targeting the elves. After all, they don't have many big elves. Anyway, they think whatever Meng does. It really makes me crazy. Sister Jonah is so well educated, but I laughed out of anger. How shameless. Before, Noi and Nora told me that they were not welcomed in the god system of life and were often bullied. I thought that maybe they were exaggerating. After all, they were the little princesses of the God King, and they were loved by everyone. Maybe they were a little spoiled. As a result, their living conditions declined after their father's death, which was magnified in their hearts. Now it seems that they are definitely not talking nonsense. They even said it lightly for the sake of the face of the god system of life. This god system is really disgusting. I will never let Nora and her sister go back to this god system. It's really infuriating. Wright waved his hand, motioning her to stop. Arrogant and proud, I roughly know what kind of character this pantheon is. They even want to threaten us with a war of gods, which is really ridiculous. Since they have said so much, let's not be polite to them. Afra was stunned for a moment. What do you mean? The Gate of Truth wants to plot against us, and now the Life Pantheon is joining in the fun. Let's fight. With a clang, Light nailed the Sin Light Great sword to the ground. The Holy Light Court will never accept this kind of war blackmail. If they want to fight, we will fight with them. It's just right to use the Life Pantheon as a sacrifice, to let those other guys who are ready to make a move see the consequences of trying to bully us. After hearing what Light said, Afra hesitated. Really, are we going to start a war of gods? I remind you, this is not the same as the war of gods in the lower world. At most, it is a fight between followers and attacks between churches. When the final outcome is basically determined, the gods will come out to fight and put an end to the war. Although the gods will participate in the war, most of them will not fight to the end, and the victory will be decided. But once the war of gods begins, it is common for gods to fall. Moreover, although the life system is not as good as before, such an ancient system is not so easy to shake. What's more, in our god court, except for me, there are basically no gods who are good at fighting. Moreover, I don't have a handy artifact. Afra looked at Wright. I know you are very strong, but are you going to be promoted to the god realm? If you come to the god realm, to fight in this way every time, how much divine power will you consume? Wright shook his finger. In your heart, you have narrowly defined the members of the god court as the twin goddesses of holy light and the twin goddesses of life. I won't talk about the angels, the blood and flesh sea god, the white mushroom lady, the fallen fungus lord, and the dirty mushroom king. They are all false gods you made. Afra said mercilessly. Do you really count on them? What is a false god? They have godhood, divinity, priesthood, divine foundation, and even their own followers and faith main city. What makes you say that they are false gods? Don't be arrogant. You may not be able to win if you pick any one of them. Moreover, haven't you noticed that they have been getting stronger recently? Wright pointed at the 4 gods he created, with pride written all over his face. Needless to say, the blood and flesh sea god, the huge number of believers in the divinity that Wright personally mixed, are destined to have a high ceiling. Although he is only a law god now, I believe it won't be long before he can challenge to become a rule level strongman. As for the remaining 3, they are indeed not as good as the blood and flesh sea god, and Wright has spent less effort. But one thing is, that the 3 of them are responsible for key links in the Nether Sea wastewater treatment project. The money from the project alone is enough to boost the 3 of them to the rule level. After all, the 3 of them are the treasures of the concept level strongman, Madam Corruption. From this point of view, although the 8 gods in the Holy Light Court are still only at the rule level, it won't be long before they can be promoted to the rule level one after another. The strength of the Holy Light Court is still very strong. Afra muttered unconvincedly. HMPH. Wait until I have magic weapon. Wright was a little speechless because of her anger. No, I asked the demon realm. to transfer you a sum of magic coins last time, which should be enough for you to buy a magic weapon. Why haven't you bought it yet? You looked straight into my eyes. Where are your magic coins? Afra smiled awkwardly. Well, I wanted to take a gamble, so I went to buy magic materials and prepared to make it myself. You don't know. The same price can only buy one finished magic weapon, but if you use it to buy magic materials and then refine it yourself, you can refine 2.5 magic weapons. Wright narrowed his eyes slightly. I have seen this statement in many online stores that assemble computers. You wouldn't be. Yes. And failed again. It's just that it didn't succeed completely. Wright covered his face and sighed. I deeply doubt who angered Jonah away. Boss, the messenger has been dug out. After hearing the report from the four-winged angel, Wright looked back and found that the messenger of the life god system was lying on the ground, still in a coma. It seems that the angels really don't like him and didn't even prepare a thin cushion. Now, what should we do? Afra looked at Wright. After all, he is the messenger of the gods, and you hit him like this with a sword. What do you mean by my sword? Wright's voice suddenly rose. It was obviously this guy who committed a crime with a weapon in our temple, and we subdued him. Don't you think so? The angel sisters looked at each other and answered in unison. Yes. The boss is right. We want the other party to claim compensation. Regarding the loss of items in the temple, make a list and ask an outsider to send it to the life god system. Ask more, such as loss of work wages, mental damage compensation, ground repair fees, and table and chair wear and tear fees. Write them all down. Include his medical expenses and food expenses. The angel sister kindly reminded. Boss, gods don't need to eat. They don't need to eat, but they can't eat. Oh, that's right. The angel in charge of writing the list suddenly became clear and felt that the door to a new world had been opened. Light said with a smile, tell them that if they want to continue to talk to us about the ownership of the artifact, they have to pay the money first. Afra was confused. Aren't we going to start a fight? First cheat the money, then start the fight. It's a good time to delay time, so that I can upgrade you one by one. Chapter 364 Deduct her pocket money, asking for monthly ticket. After leaving the envoy of the god of life to the high-level angels, Wright left Afra behind and went to Jonah's residence. As soon as he pushed the door open, he saw Jonah comforting the two sisters Nalanoi. The two little girls were in tears, as if they had just cried. Right, you're finally here. I've taken care of everything. You don't have to worry. Wright looked at the two sisters Noi and Nora with a smile. Don't worry, you two. Since you are already members of our holy light court, we will protect you and will never compromise. Nora wiped the tears from the corners of her eyes. Thank you. We just didn't expect that they were still so entangled. Or, they refused to let us go. Wright walked to the table and said, blindly giving in and being weak will not bring self-reflection and restraint to those with wolfish ambitions, but will only make them worse. If you want to protect yourself and protect what you cherish, you have to become stronger. If you are protected by others, you can only be princesses. If you become strong, then you will be your own queens. The two sisters looked at each other and nodded heavily. We don't want to be princesses of the god of life anymore. We want to be queens, our own queens. Very good. Wright rubbed the two girls' heads approvingly. Go ahead, work hard. With your qualifications, as long as you work hard, it won't be long before you can become rule level gods. I'm optimistic about you. Nalanoi wiped her tears, stood up, bowed deeply to Wright and Jonah, and then strode out of Jonah's god's residence. Seeing their resolute backs, Jonah couldn't help but sigh. I still have to rely on you. I have been persuading them for half an hour, but there is no effect at all. I didn't expect that you can persuade them with just 2 words and let them rekindle their hope. Wright sat sideways beside Jonah and hugged her in his arms. It's just telling them the truth in a suitable way. Noi and Nora are both good life gods, but because of the early departure of the king of the fiery sun, they are lacking in growth. Jonah seemed to remember her own life experience and couldn't help but burrow into Wright's arms. Right, I miss the holy city. Really? Then we will go to the holy city in a while and live in our small courtyard for a while. Is it okay? Jonah's face was full of excitement, but soon she drooped her head again. You don't want to leave all this mess to Afra, do you? No, you can't. She can't do it. Wright laughed and reached out to scratch Jonah's nose. I don't feel comfortable leaving it to her. What I mean is that now the conditions are in place. You and Afra should complete the promotion as soon as possible and become a more powerful rule god. After the promotion, you can set up various rules according to your own will and then apply them to the daily management of the world. In this way, even if you don't care about these things for the time being, as long as there are higher level angels to exercise authority on your behalf, you can ensure the basic operation of the world. If you are worried, just concentrate on handling special events at intervals. From then on, you will be completely liberated from the complicated and tedious repetitive labor. Jonah seemed a little uneasy, but I have only been a god for less than a year, and suddenly I have to be promoted to a rule god again. Isn't it a bit too fast? Wright nodded slightly. It's a bit fast, but it doesn't affect it. It's wrong to use time to measure whether you have been promoted or not. For example, Afra, if the resources were absolutely sufficient, she might have been promoted hundreds of years ago. For her, these hundreds of years were basically spent trying to gather enough divinity for her final promotion. As long as she had enough divinity, or 1,000 years and a day meant the same thing to her. You are lucky, you don't have to wait, as long as she did. Jonah rested her head on Wright's shoulder. You are awesome. I'm just afraid that your efforts will be wasted. Haha, no. Your excellence is beyond doubt. Wright paused here. Jonah was very keen to notice Wright's changes and looked up at him blankly. What's wrong? There is something I have to tell you first. After you know it, decide whether to be promoted or which path to choose when you are promoted. Then, Wright explained in detail the relationship between the divinity of law and the gate of truth, and Jonah listened thoughtfully. How about it? If you choose to give up the law godhood, you won't be spied on and coveted by the gate of truth. But I don't want you to give up, because the law godhood is very suitable for you, and there is a lot of room for future development. Most importantly, we don't need to be afraid of the gate of truth at all. I will protect you. After hearing what Wright said, Jonah was very happy and kissed him on the cheek. Yeah. Actually, I don't want to give up either. In my opinion, the law is the most necessary thing to make this world a better place. If you give up your position because you are afraid of the gate of truth and others snatching, then I would rather not be promoted. Don't worry, I'm here. I won't let anyone hurt you. I will work hard too. Although I don't want to be a queen, I want to be your queen, and a queen who can help. Wright suddenly laughed evilly and whispered in Jonah's ear. Then you have to give me more little princes and princesses. Lilith said she wants to give birth to 13. Jonah widened her eyes in shock and covered her mouth with both hands. Finally, she seemed to have made up her mind. Then I won't lose to her either. Ha 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 ha. Don't worry, there's plenty of time. This is a long-term game. Light pulled Jonah up and said, let's go find Afra. You two are both at the rule god stage, and you're twin gods. If you want to be promoted, you have to complete the promotion together. But when you reach the rule level, you can separate and become independent individuals. Really? Suddenly, I feel a little reluctant. Jonah sighed with emotion. Afra is actually a very good goddess. She may be slightly lacking in ability, but she is not a bad person by nature. Light snorted unhappily. Then you don't know that she has recently spent a lot of money on casting artifacts. What? Jonah's voice suddenly rose. Really? Why doesn't she listen? No, in order to punish her, I will stop her pocket money this month. Light smacked his lips. He didn't expect that his casual words would cut off Afra's food and grass. In this way, he felt a little guilty. Wright secretly thought in his heart that when there was a chance, he would give her some divine coins as compensation. Ahem. Let's go and complete the promotion as soon as possible, so as to intimidate those guys in the life god system. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 365, Ascending the Stairs. Both promoted. Finally. Can I get promoted? After Light told Afra about the promotion, the latter was so excited that she almost cried. Looking at the pitiful former holy light goddess, Light felt a rare sense of apology in his heart. This goddess is fine. If it weren't for him, she would have successfully been promoted to the god of rules by now. But he also helped her save the world several times, so, in a word, Light stretched out his hand and waved it in front of Afra's eyes, drawing her attention back to himself. Like Jonah, there are two paths before you. The first is to take the pure light route. I can help you with this without anyone else. The pure light attribute rule route is simpler and purer. The second is to take the sacred light route, which is the holy light route you have been insisting on. This route is more complicated and more difficult. The light attribute is easier to obtain, and the difficulty for you is the sacred divinity. However, there is a reward for every effort. If you want to take this route, as a rule god, your authority will be broader and more flexible. As long as you handle it well enough, this will make your upper limit high enough. So, which one do you choose? Afra didn't even think about it. Of course I choose sacred light. Don't forget that I'm the goddess of holy light. I have already discovered the difficulties and hardships you mentioned when I became the god of rules. But I still walked all the way to today, and I have never regretted my choice. Pure light cannot achieve my pursuit. It can't create the world I want. I choose sacred light. Wright looked at her and laughed. Okay, but, very good. Since you insist on taking this path, I will fully support you. Whether it is a sacred divinity or the light divinity, it is not a problem. Afra looked at Wright in horror. Why are you so good to me all of a sudden? It's really a bit unusual. Wright glared at her speechlessly. It's just to thank you for what happened to Jonah. There are many confusing accounts between you and me. It's hard to tell who is sorry for whom, and who owes whom. But I think it's fine like this. Afra asked quietly, can you give me more divine coins? I've recently set my eyes on another piece of divine material. I think you look like a piece of divine material. Wright was speechless from the bottom of his heart. When I have time, I will personally help you get a divine weapon with light attributes. Okay. I beg you, don't refine your own artifacts anymore, and don't spend money to buy any divine materials anymore. You feed half of the divine material dealers in the god realm, do you know? You must have the self-knowledge of being a fat sheep. After yelling, Wright reached out and lifted Afra up and walked towards the main hall of the Holy Light Temple. Jonah had been waiting in the main hall for a long time. After seeing Jonah, Afra immediately became much more honest and stood obediently beside Jonah. Wright couldn't help but sigh. There is really a thing that can defeat another. Before Jonah ascended to the god realm, she was just one of the many saints of Afra. Unexpectedly, after arriving in the god realm, the relationship between the two ushered in an extreme reversal. Now Afra follows Jonah's lead and is submissive all day long and is called sister so intimately. It can only be said that Afra, who has a somewhat eccentric personality, is most afraid of meeting someone like Jonah who is both capable and serious. Afra's honesty did save Wright a lot of effort. He asked Afra to stand side by side with Jonah and then walked around to the front of the two goddesses of holy light. Then, I will preside over today's promotion ceremony. You two just need to follow my instructions and give your all to me. With me here, promotion is inevitable. Afra raised her hand obediently, but I heard from other gods that it is not easy to squeeze out two outstanding people from the bottom of life to become gods. To be promoted to the rule level is even more dangerous. With me here, none of you will fail. I dare to say this, because I'm sure. Light spread out his hands, and the crown of the Sun King and the laurel wreath of the Moon Goddess appeared in his hands. Why are these two artifacts in your hands? Nonsense, because these two artifacts are actually mine. Wright shook the two artifacts. The artifacts of the King of the Sun are to be left to the person who meets his prophecy. Obviously, that person is me, not his daughters. As for the crown of the Moon God, it is even simpler. I snatched it back from Madam Corruption. It's just that for the sake of the Holy Light Court, I assigned the ownership of these two artifacts to the court, and then the court allocated them to the two sisters Nalanoi for use. Do you understand? So, even if the two sisters are coerced by the god of life, they can't return these two artifacts. Because these two artifacts don't belong to them. And now, I want to borrow the light divinity and these two artifacts as a medicine for your promotion. To use a word you can understand, it's probably a fuse. After saying that, Wright put his hands together. The two artifacts also collided with each other and began to rotate continuously. Gradually, their speed became faster and faster. The red and blue colors complemented each other and finally merged together. When the rotation stopped, a brand new deity floated above Light's head. Then, let's start. With the blessing of the sun and moon crown, Light immediately pulled his concept of light and spread it to the twin goddesses of holy light. Whether it was Aphra or Jonah, their current state was already the limit of the god of law. They did not advance, just because they lacked the last and most critical part of the divine puzzle. And Light directly forced them to make up for the missing part. In the light, Aphra and Jonah felt unprecedented wonder. The laws they originally relied on were repaired and then fully displayed in front of them. If they were passengers on the ship before, now they have taken off the deck and started to circle the entire ship, looking at these laws as a whole. The previous confusion dissipated, and a feeling of sudden enlightenment filled their hearts. You all know the attributes of light, but you may need to think about the sacredness and law. Wright raised his hand again, and two new groups of divinity appeared behind him, namely the sacredness and law. These are the divinity stored in the two crowns. You two are really lucky. The sacredness and law here are not cheap goods accumulated from the mortal world, but the top quality goods accumulated to govern the kingdom of God and manage the gods. Now, they are yours. Chapter 366. What you want. Subscription request. Wright looked at the two people shrouded in different colors of light, and was very surprised. Although they are both goddesses of light, the sacred light is a milky white, which looks softer, and the golden color that ripples from time to time also makes it look particularly sacred. But Jonah's light of law is pure light, pure white, even whiter than the pure divinity of light. This may be a certain external manifestation of the law. As Wright expected, the promotion process of the two was very smooth. After all, both of them have good talents, and the paths they choose are very suitable for themselves. The most important thing is their firm hearts. Divinity is the embodiment of God's will. If God's will is not firm enough, not only will it be easy to be swayed by the beliefs of believers in daily life and become a slave of faith, but it will also be easier to fail when promoted. He doesn't even believe in the path he wants to take. How can such a guy be qualified to be a god who makes rules? Only gods who believe in themselves and have no doubt about their divinity are qualified to build their own rules outside of the law. Laws are the foundation of rules, and any rules need to be built on laws. There are very few individuals who can become gods, and it stands to reason that there should not be those with weak wills. But becoming a god also has its own troubles. If you are unfortunate enough to be involved, the consequences are mostly that your divinity becomes impure. Impurities appear in your godhood, your foundation begins to loosen, and you end up being destroyed, or becoming an evil god, or falling into the demon world. This is why there are so many fallen gods and fallen angels in the demon world. Sometimes they don't want to fall, but they accumulate too many impurities and cracks little by little, and finally they can't turn back and have to fall into the demon world. But Jonah and Aphra are obviously not the latter. The light gradually converged and finally disappeared into their divine bodies. From the fluctuations of their divine power, it can be felt that both of them have completed the last step. Boom! Exclamation mark. Two powerful energy fluctuations bloomed from them, forming ripples in the divine world and constantly spreading outward. Oh, it's successful. Wright was very happy. Although he had made all the preparations, he hoped that these preparations would not be used at all. The first to open her eyes was Aphra. She looked at her hands. Her eyes gradually became more focused from the initial confusion, and finally she shed tears of excitement. Great, I finally succeeded. After so many years and so much effort, the fusion of holiness and light. Aphra ascended to the level of god of rules and initially mastered the ability to create rules. But now, she was completely in the dark and had no idea how to operate. But she could feel that she was different from before. And it was not a small change, but a qualitative change. Don't worry. Wright saw the other party's confusion. There will be plenty of opportunities to learn in the future. This is a brand new field for you. You need to undergo systematic training to create rules that conform to your beliefs. But it is the most direct way to improve your basic strength. More powerful divine power, deeper divine power, and more stable and firm divinity and godhood. It can even be said that you are now hardly the same as you were when you were the god of law. Get familiar with it slowly. Afra nodded excitedly, and Jonah beside her also completed the promotion and became a new rule level god. She slowly opened her eyes, her face full of joy. Unlike Afra, she was promoted quickly, and she did not stay at the rule level god level for hundreds or thousands of years, so she felt more novelty. Especially since the power of law is naturally similar to the use of rule level power, she may be able to control this new power faster than Afra. So, the promotion was successful. There was less noise than I thought. Afra witnessed the end of Jonah's promotion, and was a little disappointed. Wright rolled his eyes at her. What do you want? Is it that there will be a natural phenomenon, a sensation in the divine world, and the entire sea of realms will be shocked? Are your names whispered between the bubbles of the world? Promotion itself is a breakthrough of self, not to mention that it is only a rule level. If you want a big movement, maybe it will appear when you are promoted to the concept level. Besides, when you succeeded in the promotion, you did emit a powerful divine power fluctuation that belongs only to the rule level gods. I think at least the entire divine world can feel that 2 more rule level strongmen have been born. For our holy light divine court, it is always a good thing. At least it will make those scoundrels who attempt to attack us weigh their own weight. In the future, we will not be able to be touched by any cat or dog. Afra rubbed his hands and said with a smile, moreover, we have 2 rule level gods sitting in, and it will be very smooth to recruit new gods at that time. Jonah looked at Afra in surprise. I didn't expect that you would be so concerned about filling the divine court. Afra straightened her chest. Of course, I'm the main god of this world. So, I should also care about whether this world is thriving. Wright laughed unhappily at the side. Don't listen to her nonsense. She is thinking that every new god who joins the court of gods will have to offer her a divine artifact. So she is so happy. Afra, whose little trick was exposed, pouted. I'm a rule level god after all. Letting them offer 1 or 2 divine artifacts is giving them a chance. At that time, I will remind them and let them avoid detours. For example, if you meet some believers who are not easy to get along with, expel them from the team of believers as soon as possible. Otherwise there will be endless troubles. Hey, do you believe that I can knock you back to the realm of the god of laws? Afra immediately hid behind Jonah and said cautiously. Sister Jonah, you have to save me. I haven't violated any laws, so he can't punish me, right? Jonah laughed. From the perspective of the law, that's right. But Light's authority of light is above the 2 of us, and I don't have the power to enforce the law. At most, I can only prove that you are right. Light grinned. Okay, since both of you have been promoted successfully, we have to proceed to the next plan. Plan? What plan? Light raised his finger. Of course, by formulating rules to free you 2 from the heavy affairs of the Lord God. Jonah blushed when she heard it, because she knew why Light was so enthusiastic to help her free up her work. Afra said naively, the affairs of the Lord God are not heavy at all. You are the important inducement for the heavy workload. Look, I'll deal with you first. Chapter 367. Let's go back and continue. After 2 days of preparation, Emily and Jenny were ready to go. Wright took Lilith and Jonah to the gate of the capital of the Elf Empire to see them off. Because the Emerald Dream has disappeared, we can't take a shortcut to the harbor city of Kedros for the time being. So, you have to take a detour to the harbor city and meet up with Alice there. Wright took out a map and handed it to Emily. After picking up Alice, you can go together to find my sacred artifact, the Kingdom of Imagination. Emily stuffed the map into her luggage. Really, this shortcut is gone when we need it. Don't worry about this. Wright pointed to the direction behind him with his thumb. The goddess of life has returned to her place, and the world is recuperating. It won't be long before Noinala will create a new Emerald Dream. Not only here, we also plan to build a pure white dream in the holy city. In this way, we can quickly travel back and forth between the 3 places. Is there such a good thing? Emily suddenly became excited. Then we might as well wait until these dreams are built before we go. No. Wright ruthlessly rejected her proposal. This time out is to let you experience more, and hone more. Eat bitterness and suffer a little, so that Emily can grow up. Come on. As a result, you would not give me. Leto was furious, and immediately gave her a knife. You want the unicorn. How can I give it? I want to ask. I didn't see it for 2 days. Sister Lilith has changed this diagonal shape. Ahem. That's not important. By the way, don't you have anything to say to your sister Jonah? Emily immediately ran to Jonah. Sister Jonah, long time no see. I miss you so much. It's a pity that we have to separate again after just meeting. Jonah rubbed Emily's head lovingly. It's okay. A short separation is just for a better encounter. Besides, if you are bored on the road, you can come to me to pray. I will respond to you at any time. Ahem. That. Wright suddenly interrupted. You pray. Find Afra. Your sister Jonah may be busy recently, and she may not be free at any time. Also, don't pray for nothing. Emily rolled her eyes at him, continued to hold Jonah's hand and said, speaking of which, Sister Jonah is getting more and more beautiful. Especially your new hairstyle. It's really beautiful and cute. Double ponytails and so on. It really suits you. Jonah blushed. Yes, is it? In fact, it's mainly because Wright is used to it. Emily tilted her head. Habit? What do you mean? Wright pulled her over. Look at it, and get used to it. I said, where do you get so many questions? Why don't you usually look so enthusiastic and eager to learn? It's better to use this little gossip to improve your knowledge. Let's go quickly, and start your new journey quickly. Jenny next to her couldn't stand it anymore. She grabbed Emily, who looked confused, and turned around and left. We're leaving first. Don't see us off. The two walked away in the noise, and their backs disappeared at the corner of the road. Wright then took Lilith and Jonah, and walked back with a smile. Hey, two beauties, it's only noon now. Why don't we go back and take a nap? What do you think? Lilith rolled her eyes at him. Then just like yesterday, take a nap in the afternoon, sleep until dark, and then don't get up. Just continue to sleep, right? You actually saw through me. Jonah looked at Wright shyly. You, really? You can't just do whatever you want, just because you have the restoration of the two secret arts of holy light and life. I've been busy for so long. What's wrong with enjoying myself for a while? Let's go. Let's keep playing music and dancing. Without further ado, Wright took the two women to a manor in the capital of the Elf Empire. That was a permanent residence in the Elf Empire that the elves gave him to thank him. Although Wright still prefers the small manor in the holy city, it doesn't prevent him from enjoying it here first. Just as the three of them were walking back, the high priest of the Temple of Life came over with people. Oh no, it looks like he's here to find us. Lilith looked at Wright. Is there something wrong with the divine court? Jonah frowned. It's impossible. Afra, Wright and I spent a lot of effort to formulate the rules for the operation of the world. With the holy loring and the holy wisdom cloud library, as well as the artificial corrections of the archangels, there won't be any problems. Even if there is a problem, as the creator of the rules, I should know it at the first time. Just when the three were confused, the high priest of life came to the three and knelt on one knee. My lord, I finally found you. The two goddesses have urgent matters to find you, and the Lord God. Wright looked at Jonah, looking for us too. Is there really a problem with the rules of the world's operation? It shouldn't be. Jonah looked at the high priest. Did the goddess of life say anything? The goddess didn't say what it was specifically, but it seemed to mention that it was related to some captives captured last time. Wright clapped his hands. Oh, I know. Okay, we know about this. You just need to withdraw. Yes. The high priests left with their people, and Wright took Lilith and Jonah, and turned to the direction of the Lake of Life. Halfway, Lilith couldn't help asking, what's the matter? And there are captives? Whose captives? A special envoy sent by the god of life wanted to take back the sun and moon crown. I beat him up, and took him prisoner, and asked the god of life to redeem him with divine coins. Oh, that's how it is. Wright glanced at Lilith. You don't seem surprised at all. What good experience can you get from this happening to you? Lilith laughed. I'm curious, has the god of life figured it out, or has it figured it out? Chapter 368 I want to fight with you. Please subscribe. In front of the life mushroom, Wright put his hand on it. Then Lilith let go of Wright's hand. I won't go with you. Then I won't go either. I get annoyed when I see the hateful faces of those people in the life god system. Jonah took Lilith's arm. The two of us are going to go to the elves market for a stroll. Lilith was very surprised. Even you are annoyed by them? Then these people in the life god system must be really annoying. Right, don't let them go. Okay. Wright was about to ascend to heaven, but turned back and said, speaking of which, the costumes of the elves are quite good. You can buy more. I like their hollow design and their fine tradition of saving fabrics as much as possible. Lilith rolled her eyes at him. I know. Go quickly. Wright smiled slightly. His figure turned into light, and under the blessing of the life mushroom, he left the holy light world and came to the holy light temple in the god realm. Seeing Wright coming, the archangel of judgment who was guarding the door came up to him immediately. Boss, you are finally here. Are there people from the life god system again? Not only that, this time it's not just the life god system, but also other god systems, and even the dragon clan has come. Wright frowned. What do you mean? Are they calling their friends to put pressure on us? No, they are here to redeem people, and they have already paid the god coins. Huh. Wright was a little surprised. He thought the other party would bargain. Unexpectedly, the other party paid the money directly. You know, the price he offered was simply a lion's mouth, and it was not much less than asking for an exorbitant price. Could it be that he underestimated the foundation of the life god system, and the other party was actually a dog owner? Or, the so-called special envoy who was captured by him actually had a special identity, which led to the other party's willingness to spend such an astronomical figure? No, if that was the case, they wouldn't have bothered to invite so many people from other god systems to participate. After all, the death of King Liang was unclear, and the two little princesses ran away from the life god system and became homeless, and were finally taken in by me. It's not nice to tell this kind of thing. The life god system should be hiding it, so how could it take the initiative to dig out its own embarrassing things? It seems that they are not here with good intentions. Wright waved his hand. Let's go. I want to see what these gods want to do. Led by the archangel, Wright walked into the reception room. Unexpectedly, the reception room of the Holy Light Temple, which was deserted in the past, is now crowded. In addition to 5 powerful gods sitting on the guest side, there are many gods standing behind them. The host family on the other side seems deserted. Jonah is not here, and the sisters Nalanoi have been well protected. Afra sat there alone, looking a little weak. When she saw Wright coming, she smiled immediately. Then the next second, she was lifted up by Wright by the back of the neck, and placed on the second seat. Don't you know what your position is? I'm a goddess after all. I'm also the main god of the Holy Light world, the lord of the Holy Light court. Oh. Wright dismissed him with a word that was neither painful nor itchy, and then turned to look at the other side of the table. Everyone, you can introduce yourselves now. He pointed and said, let's start with the guy on the left. Wright's arrogant attitude naturally aroused public indignation. One of the gods, who was muscular but shorter, angrily smashed his lava hammer on the table. Hey, you kid, are you too arrogant? Wright also pulled out his Dragon Slayer's lament and threw it directly on the table. I've always been so arrogant, so what? The Dragon Clan's special envoy was an elf dragon god, and he almost cried when he saw the Dragon Slayer sword. Mr. Wright. First of all, we dragons didn't offend you. Secondly, we dragons didn't offend any of you. You, what are you doing? Sorry, I took out the wrong one. Wright nailed Sunlight to the table with a clang. Everyone, this is the territory of our Holy Light Court. You came here uninvited, swarmed here, staring at me, and looked like you would fight if you didn't agree. You also asked me if I was too arrogant. What's the reason? When friends come, we have fine wine. When enemies come, we have swords. So what if you are a god? It's not like I haven't killed before. But the Sunlight greatsword instantly burst out with terrifying energy fluctuations, and the dazzling light made many gods present dare not look directly at it. The terrible pressure, coupled with Wright's murderous eyes, made the gods present suddenly realize the other party is not a good man, As he said, gods are nothing special to him, and he can kill them if he wants to. All of a sudden, the aggressive momentum of this mob softened. The dragon representative was even more fearful. He had tried to persuade these stupid teammates earnestly before coming. He even told them the big loss suffered by the dragon clan in a tactful way. As a result, these gods were too self-righteous and continued to do as they pleased. I really think that a newly established small divine court is nothing to be afraid of. They don't know that this gentleman in front of them will really kill if he is in a bad mood. Who is the messenger of the god of life? It's me. One of the gods in green robes stood up and bowed deeply to Wright. I'm from the god of life, Ravdal. Nice to meet you, Mr. Wright. We are here today for the purpose of peace talks. And we apologize to you and the Holy Light Court for what the previous messengers did. And we hope to sit down and have a good talk with you to resolve the conflict between the two sides. What about this bunch of monsters and demons? These friends are all witnesses I invited. The gods of the god of life spoke very appropriately. It is also to make our conversation more formal. Are you afraid that I will catch you and beat you up again and then ask for another fee? Ha 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 ha. Yes. Unexpectedly, Ravdal didn't play tricks and agreed directly. I know Mr. Light's intention, but I have a better suggestion. I wonder if you can give me a chance. Light raised his eyebrows. You can talk about it. Mr. Light, the conflict between us cannot be reconciled for the time being. The two artifacts in your hand are too important for our life god system. Their significance is far greater than their function. Their status in our god system is the symbol of orthodoxy. Therefore, no matter what, we cannot allow ourselves to not take back these two artifacts when we know that they are in the hands of others. Light laughed. When they were in the hands of Madam Corruption before, I didn't see you asking for them. Mr. Light, we really didn't know that Madam Corruption was the former Lady of the Moon. The life god system has suffered a heavy blow, and many ancient things can no longer be verified. Ravdal said sincerely. As for the crown of the King of the Fiery Sun, I think you also know that we tried to find it, but in the end there was no result. Now that these two artifacts are in your hands, we just want to welcome them back to the life god system in a reasonable way. Even if you speak, as long as you are not too much, we must do our best. Light laughed. I said so well. I don't want these two artifacts. The crowd behind him began to coax again, and the momentum was very enthusiastic. Symbol. Since you don't have these two artifacts, it proves that you are not the god of life. Ravdal was even more shocked. It's bad. We have become a side branch. You. How can you say such irresponsible words? Wright laughed. Listen carefully, all gods. I now hold two orthodox god level artifacts of the life god system. The blood of King Liang and Lady Moon is also here. If the orthodoxy of the life god system is not in my holy light god court, then where is it? On the contrary, this person is here to cheat under the name of the life god system. Tell me, why do you call yourself the life god system? Ravdal was extremely angry. He wanted to refute his own god system, but he couldn't say a word. After thinking for a long time, for a moment, his face turned red, his eyes bulged out, and he looked like a frog. You bunch of traitors, you deceitful villains. We didn't investigate your wrongdoings under the banner of the god of life, but you came to us and asked us to return the artifact? It's ridiculous. I have never seen such a shameless person. Although the gods present didn't understand everything, they could understand what Wright wanted to say by listening to the general meaning. For a moment, the gods' brains were a little confused. We seemed to be the righteous people who followed others to find a place, but now we are developing towards the direction of the accomplices of the traitors? This, how could things turn out like this? It's really too magical. You, how can you do this? Things shouldn't be like this. Ravdal was suddenly confused, his mind was in a mess, and his words became difficult to understand. Fortunately, the elf dragon god next to him was still sober and held Ravdal down. Hey, have you forgotten that you have other things to do? Other things. Oh, right. The words of the elf dragon god pulled Ravdal back from the edge of rational collapse. He took several deep breaths and adjusted his rhythm. Mr. Wright, it's boring to be good at talking. Really? I think it's fun. Looking at Wright's smiling face, Rabdal's heart, which had just calmed down, suddenly became irritable. He cast several divine spells of natural breath on himself in succession, before calming down again. It's like this, Mr. Wright, the contradiction is here, and we have to solve it after all. Since we couldn't reach an agreement at the negotiation table before, I think it's better to do this. Let's change the way. When Wright heard it, he immediately became angry. Oh. What way? Bet. Before Wright said anything, Afra got excited first. She grabbed Light and whispered, "Don't agree to them." "What do you mean? Is there something fishy about this bet?" Betting is a method often used by gods to solve problems. Afra took advantage of this opportunity to explain to Light. After all, everyone has reached the level of gods. It is impossible for conflicts to break out directly over anything. For example, you will go directly to hunt down the dragon god emperor of the dragon clan like you did. Wright spread his hands. I don't think there is anything wrong with it. That will easily lead to a blood feud between the two pantheons and cause a large number of gods to fall. In order to graze the lower realms and other things, friction often arises between gods. If the gods go down directly every time, no pantheon can withstand such a high and frequent fall. Therefore, in order to solve the problem and avoid direct conflicts between gods, the act of gambling was born. The gods will select the heroes they like and let the two sides fight in the form of an arena. The victory of the heroes is the victory of the gods. Everyone abides by this agreement, and it is supervised by all the pantheons, kingdoms, and courts of the gods in the divine world. Wright frowned slightly. Heroic spirit arena? This kind of thing is really... That was an ancient way of gambling. Later, with the development of time, most gods felt that this kind of confrontation between very few elite individuals could not reflect the true power of a god in the foundation of the entire pantheon. So, they carried out reforms, and finally two ways of gambling were produced. Wright laughed. This little trick actually has a history of changes. You gods are really idle. Afra stamped her feet anxiously. Listen to me carefully. These two ways of gambling are the extermination mode and the pastoral mode. The extermination mode is relatively simple. That is, to find a plane eroded by demons, and then the two sides of the gambling fight send their own clergy army into this world to completely eliminate the demons and enemies above. In the end, whoever finally occupies this lost plane wins. Wright thought, this is good. While the gambling fight is going on, a plane is also cleared by the way, which can be regarded as a contribution. The pastoral mode, wouldn't it be? Yes, the pastoral mode is to find a world, to simulate the gods grazing, and both sides will eventually occupy the entire world through preaching. Wright raised his hand. That's not right. Then how long will the gambling fight end? The small worlds used for gambling fights in the pastoral mode are generally not big. They are the kind of world bubbles that have just been born. Afra lowered her voice. Don't you also know that a pastoral world will actually experience multiple grazings in the process of growing up? Generally, the first grazing has small returns, small area, and scarce resources, just like sour small fruits. Everyone doesn't like them very much and prefers to wait until the world bubble is bigger and fatter before taking action. Therefore, when the world bubble is young, it is often used as a gambling fight venue. After listening, Wright's eyes lit up. Isn't this gambling fight fun? Chapter 369. The dagger revealed, asking for monthly ticket. Light was very surprised. He could understand the general purpose of the gods fight. Whether it was a competition of preaching or expelling demons from a lost world, it was actually a competition of the ability to shepherd the world. Indeed, these two things, compared to a simple duel of heroic spirits, can better reflect the basic skills of both gods in shepherding the world. But, the other party looked confident of winning, which made Light very confused. These guys from the God of Life should not come to provoke him without any investigation. If he collected and investigated the information, he should understand that no matter which of these two competitions, it would be a fantasy to win from him. In this case, these gods still came to fight with him. Is there any conspiracy or preparation? What do you think, Mr. Light? Holy Light Court, do you want to make a bet? Light sneered. You can make a bet. If someone likes to give it away, should I stop them? But I'm curious what your bet is. I know your goal very well. It's nothing more than the sun and moon crowns. But since you want to take a gamble, you have to offer a divine weapon that is comparable to the sun and moon crowns or other secret treasures. If you don't have that kind of wealth, you can't get to the gambling table. We dare to make this bet. Of course we can afford the bet. Raftel of the Life God system took out 2 glittering boxes. These are 2 divine weapons that are comparable to the crown of the Sun King. As long as you agree, we are willing to use them as stakes for the bet. Afra stood up instantly, her eyes fixed on the 2 treasure boxes, and was pulled down directly by light. Open it and take a look. No. Raftel shook his head and refused. A divine artifact of this level is an extremely important treasure of a pantheon, and it can even be related to the rise and fall of the entire pantheon. If you don't intend to make this bet, why should I let you see it and make you care about it for nothing? But I promise that the things in it are indeed divine artifacts of the same level. If you agree, I will open the box. If there is any discrepancy between what I said, the bet will be invalidated immediately. How about it? Light glanced at Afra next to him. Human luck is constant, and the same is true for gods. It seems that you have been betting on gods for so long, and your luck is finally going to change. Afra pulled Light's arm. Do you really want to agree to them? I always feel that things are not that simple. Light patted Afra's hand. So, what kind of bet are you going to have? The one about preaching, or the one about clearing demons? Unexpectedly, Raftel shook his head and raised 3 fingers. 3. We have to compete in 3 bets. 2 out of 3. Civil fight, martial fight and tradition. Wright raised his eyebrows. Interesting, very interesting. He slapped the table and pointed at the 2 boxes. Open. Okay. Raftel gently opened the 2 boxes and saw the head of a cane placed inside, which exuded a strong sacred atmosphere. In the other box, there was an ancient book, exuding the breath of order. This book is called the Divine Code of Gaklis, which was once the artifact of the God of Law. And this one is the Scepter of Order, which was the authority artifact of the God of Order back then. Wright raised his eyebrows. These 2 artifacts are a reinforcement for Afra and Jonah, and they are also what they need most now. Afra always makes a fuss that she doesn't have an artifact. In fact, it's not just her. Jonah has never had an artifact. It's just that she has never been like Afra, talking about this all day long. But she is now a rule level expert, and it is hard to explain that she does not have a handy artifact. However, the 2 artifacts that the other party took out are so targeted, which means that the other party must have conducted a detailed information investigation on her side. In this case, there is still a bet. Wright narrowed his eyes slightly. It seems that this life god system is not so brainless as to come and give away heads. They must have their own plans. 3 games, 2 wins. Dare to take the initiative to make this bet. They should be confident that they can win at least 2 of the games. Moreover, it is very likely that they still have this confidence when they know their advantages and strengths. That, it is interesting. Wright thought about it and then laughed. Your 2 things are not good. Although the code is a complete artifact of the God King, it is not the artifact of the God King's authority. And although this scepter is the artifact of the God King's authority, it is a pity that there is only one scepter head, which is a broken version. These 2 things are inferior to our double crowns. What if we add this? The elf dragon god took out an artifact and placed it on the table. Wright looked up and saw a wreath that exuded a strong breath of life. Let me introduce it. The elf king's wreath of praise. The elf dragon god said with a smile. With this thing, you can let the elves under your command complete the promotion. Wright laughed. The elves of the holy light world have completed the promotion and become the great elves. I'm afraid your thing is useless, right? No, the elf king's wreath of praise can allow the elves to advance to the highest level of elves, the holy elves. After becoming a holy elves, their strength is comparable to that of the angels. Wright was stunned when he heard it. The angels are the messengers of the gods and the servants of God in the eyes of the world. Among them, the lowest level 2 winged angels already have legendary strength, and the 4 winged angels can even reach the demigod level. For example, the 8 6-winged high-level angels in the Holy Light Court are comparable to ordinary gods. Even the 6-winged angels can continue to be promoted. The legendary 12-winged angel king is even enough to be on par with high-level gods. The price is that angels, as a tribe created by God, cannot comprehend the laws, let alone break through to the rule level. But this is enough to make the angel tribe have a reputation second only to God. Now the other party said that the elves can actually become holy elves on par with the angels. This really aroused some interest in Wright. Does it also work on Dro? Of course. Angels also have branches such as fallen angels and shadow angels. After the elf dragon god gave the answer, he changed the subject. I think Mr. Wright should be able to realize the importance of this artifact to the Holy Light Court. You claim that the orthodoxy of the life god system is in your hands, but you don't even have a way to promote the representative elves of the life god system. Isn't it a bit unreasonable? Wright didn't care about this, but he was very curious about this method of raising the upper limit of a tribe. Of course, humans cannot use it. After all, their souls are unstable. But he has a lot of God's followers that he created himself. If he can reverse the technology tree and disassemble and analyze the principle of this wreath, maybe he can copy similar means, or even make a more powerful version. Light, who is afraid of insufficient firepower. He has no resistance to explosive soldiers. This thing is really good, I agree. Wait. The elf dragon god suddenly interrupted Light. Mr. Light, don't you think that with this artifact, the stakes on our side are higher? Oh. Then what do you say? What should we do? It's very simple. The elf dragon god pointed to the dragon slayer's lament on the table. Count this holy weapon as well. Chapter 370. Literary fight, physical fight, and duel. It was not until the other party said the dragon slayer's lament that Wright smiled in relief. So that's how it is. The other party has pulled so many gods to help, and they are taking every step carefully, luring the enemy deep, and deliberately showing weakness, making it so complicated. In the end, it's actually for this knife. Or, it's not just for this knife. The dragon god realm and the life god realm, both of them have what they want in the hands of the holy light god court. But for various reasons, they dare not directly grab it. I don't know what happened to these two unlucky guys, but they know that each other's situation is the same as their own. So, we unite and become a double team. Wright's doubts disappeared in an instant. The life god realm does not have the size to make so many gods come to follow him to boost his courage, but it's different with the dragon clan. The life god realm has money and the dragon god realm can fight. When these two meet, they are really a difficult guy. Wright stood up the dragon slayer's lament and stuck it on the negotiation table. The sharp dragon slaying murderer Sora pierced the elf dragon king all over. Okay, I'll bet this knife. But you only add the elf king's crown of praise, which is not enough. Raftel frowned. 3-3, very fair. No, I don't want your things that much. But you want my things very much. If you want to start a gambling game, you can, and increase the bet. Raftel looked at the three things in front of him with difficulty. This is already a lot. Your knife is even just a sacred weapon. Oh, you despise it. Then I won't use it as a bet. Don't. Why don't you despise it? Because it's just a sacred weapon. Raftel and the elf dragon god looked at each other and sighed helplessly. Okay, what do you want? Didn't you investigate us very clearly? Light looked at him with a smile. You are so familiar with what we lack. Then just continue to guess what we need. After he said that, he nudged Afra with his elbow. I feel that they care more about what we lack than we do. We want artifacts. No, we should ask for divine materials. No, I think we should ask for divine coins. Happiness came too suddenly, and Afra was a little confused for a moment, not knowing what to ask for. Suddenly, she clapped her hands. We want the world tree. Ravdal and the elf dragon god were thinking about what benefits to give Light, so that he would recognize her. Afra's shout scared the two on the opposite side. Ah, I said it wrong. What I meant was to ask for the branches of the world tree. Wright looked at Afra in shock. Not bad. I look at you differently, Afra. You must have thought of taking the last branch of the world tree from the two sisters Nalanoi, and you felt bad about it. So now you want another one to compensate them. Not bad, not bad. You have finally grown up. I'm very relieved, Afra. Unexpectedly, Afra blushed and smiled. I think that the finished artifact is not as good as the divine material, and the divine material is not as good as the divine currency. You can buy whatever you want. But I also consider that some divine materials are priceless and cannot be bought with divine coins. Suddenly, I had a flash of inspiration. Is there any divine material in the God of Life that we can't buy even with divine coins? Isn't that the branch of the world tree? Wright slowly closed his eyes. Give it back to me. What to give you back? Give me back the relief and touching I just felt. Wright looked at Ravdal with a sad face. With this world tree branch, our bet can be officially established. But Ravdal hesitated. After all, this matter was openly a bet between the Life God system and the Holy Light God Court. But seriously speaking, the Dragon God realm is also one of the shareholders. If the Life God system takes out precious treasures such as the World Tree branch, the expenditure agreed upon by both parties will be unfair. The Life God system certainly desires the Sun and Moon crown, but it does not want to be a sucker. As if seeing the hesitation of the Life God system, the Elf Dragon King whispered, "The Dragon God realm will definitely give you an explanation." Well then, it's settled. In the end, the two sides reached a deal. The bets on the Life God system are Divine Code of Gakris, Elven King's Praise Wreath, World Tree Branch, and Scepter of the God of Order, with only the staff head. On the other hand, the Holy Light Court had the Crown of the Sun King, Crown of the Moon Goddess, and the Elegy of the Dragon Slayer. It seemed that Wright had taken a big advantage, but in fact, every item that the Holy Light Court brought out was a good thing that could strangle the opponent. The way of the duel was to take three kinds of competitions: missionary work in the primary world, expelling demons in the lost world, and the arena of heroes. But in Wright's opinion, it was actually a literary fight, a martial fight, and a duel. Witnessed by the gods, the two sides reached a consensus and signed the gods' contract. This contract was not only related to the many gods who witnessed it, but also to the will of the big world. If anyone dared to violate it, not only would they become the public enemy of the gods, but they would also be hostile to the will of the big world, which was basically a dead end. When the contract was successfully signed, Ravdal of the Life God system and the Elf Dragon God of the Dragon God realm breathed a sigh of relief, looking relaxed as if they had fulfilled a wish. Wright was really curious about how they estimated their abilities in their hearts when he saw them like this. Also, how did they think they would win? Their confidence even deeply infected Afra. She quietly asked Wright, "Why are they so happy? Will we lose?" Wright tilted his head and looked at her. "What do you think? Impossible. Is there anyone in this world who is worse than you? Then it's over." But Afra pointed at the other party. "They are so happy that they can't even hold it back." Time. Wright was too lazy to analyze it. Anyway, the result would be known when the time came. Tomorrow. It starts tomorrow. What about the venue? The venue will be randomly selected at that time. This is the old rule. Wright nodded slightly. Then, which one do you want to compete first? I can choose anyone. Then let's compete in exorcising demons first. Ravdal blurted out, but Wright showed a meaningful smile. It seems that you really have planned it all out long ago. So what? Ravdal did not hide it. Anyway, the contract has been signed. You have no chance to regret it. Wright waved his hand in disdain. You are too clever to scheme. Any conspiracy is a useless struggle in the face of absolute strength. It's up to you. Tomorrow is tomorrow. Chapter 371 The Correct Use of the Devil of Lies. Subscription request. Having achieved their goal, the gods swarmed out of the Holy Light Temple. The originally lively reception room also became quiet. Wright put away both weapons and turned around to leave, but was blocked by Afra. "Where are you going?" "To enjoy my wonderful life of 3 people." "Wow, you can say that. What does it matter?" Afra pointed at Wright. "Don't we need to think of a countermeasure? What if the other party plays tricks?" "They will definitely play tricks, but we don't know what tricks they are at the moment. Since we don't know, how can we think of a countermeasure?" Wright spread his hands. "We can only analyze the specific situation at that time. So now, there is no need to worry, and there is no need to think about it. Take a good rest, and wait for tomorrow's gambling fight." Afra came to Wright. "Aren't you well known in the demon world? By then, My name in the demon world is well known. But they even know what artifacts you are missing. How could they not know about me? Wright said while picking his ears. They chose the first fight, and it was a day later. It means that they must have made preparations against me, and they are afraid that we will find out after a long time. In a day, even if they find out, there is probably no time to make up for it. What should we do? Wright didn't show any sign of nervousness, but laughed out loud. How do you know that the means they prepared are really effective? Gods are often arrogant and conceited. They think they are prepared. Isn't it better for us? Wright stretched out his hand and pressed it on Afra's head. Don't worry, even if I don't care about your artifact, don't I care about Jonah? Afra blinked and asked, then, will you win? You will win, Wright said, and his figure disappeared. When he opened his eyes again, he was back to the mushroom of life. After returning to the holy light world, the light smile on Wright's face gradually disappeared, replaced by a solemn face. Yes, the arrogance and underestimation of the enemy before were all deliberately pretended by him. In such an important bet, the other party played such blatant tricks. Wright naturally would not take it lightly. He just did that, just to give Afra a false impression. Wright did not doubt Afra's position. She was definitely his person. There was no doubt about that. But Wright knew a truth when he was very young, which is that if the king is not secretive, he will lose his ministers. If the ministers are not secretive, they will lose their bodies. And if some things are not secretive, they will become harmful. For important things, the fewer people know, the better. Even if you have to choose to conspire with others, you have to choose reliable and trustworthy ones. Although Afra is one of us, she is really not very reliable. If some confidential actions are told to her, she is likely to be tricked by someone with ulterior motives. Or, she will do some unnecessary things that she is not aware of, and then accidentally leak the information. But this guy has a very strong self-esteem. If these words are made clear, she will definitely be angry and have a small temper. Simply, give her a frivolous image of winning, let her calm down, and do the intelligence work that is really needed. Wright went all the way back to his manor from the mushroom of life. Seeing that Lilith and Jonah were still out playing and had not returned, he lay alone on the specially made 3-person bed. With his eyes closed, Wright fell asleep. Then, he used a secret method and came to the dream rift. Wright did not stay in the dream rift for a moment and came directly to the old site of the fairy tale town and entered the fairy tale subspace from here. Old pie, hurry up and take me to the fairy tale kingdom. Wright stood there and shouted a few times, but there was no response. In desperation, he had to go to the direction of the fairy tale kingdom by himself. Fortunately, the entrance was not too far from the fairy tale kingdom, and he arrived there in a short time. Old pie, what are you doing? Don't you feel that I'm here? What do you do as the master of the fairy tale world? Wright angrily pushed open the door of the palace of the king of fairy tales, and was immediately shocked. The devil of lies, the master of fairy tales, Pinocchio, was now slumped in a chair. His eyes were dull, and there was still an empty bottle of red wine in his hand. You, what's wrong with you? How come you become so decadent after not seeing you for a while? Pinocchio glanced at Light and hung his head. Alice is gone, and we don't know when she will be back. I'm useless as a teacher. I can't even escort her all the way. What if she encounters danger? What if she gets lost? What if? Wow, why are you acting like an old devil with an empty nest? Light walked up to the throne speechlessly and lifted him up. Wake up. You are at least a conceptual level strongman. Look at what you look like now. If I had known you would be like this, I should have stuffed you back into the CI. Seeing Pinocchio like this, Light suddenly regretted it. He felt that this guy was terribly weak now, not even as reliable as Afra. If you do this again, I will take a picture of you and show it to Alice when she comes back. No, don't. The devil of lies suddenly stood up. You are destroying the lofty image of me as a teacher in Alice's heart. If you really want to maintain the lofty image of a teacher in Alice's heart, please do something during the time when your disciple is away. In this way, when Alice comes back, she will be amazed. Wow, it turns out that the teacher is such a great person. He had been doing nothing before because he distracted his energy to teach me. Once he devoted himself to his career, he achieved such great results. The teacher is really so great. And so on. After hearing this, the devil of lies jumped up from the throne and grabbed Light's hand. Boss, I've got it. Please give me a big project. Let me shine. Let me heat up. Let me fight until death for this great cause. Now there is indeed something I need you to do, and I will feel more at ease, only if you do it. Where did you get all this wine? Oh, I used my ability to make lies come true. Don't use the precious power of lies on this kind of thing. Wright snatched the bottle and took 2 sips. It tastes good. Give me 2 bottles, and I'll have a candlelight dinner tonight to help with my sexual desire. No problem. By the way, boss, what did you come to me for? Oh, I was so angry at you that I almost forgot about the business. Leopai, I need you to go to the devils and get some information. You know, they are most afraid of you. Boss, I think they are more afraid of you. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 372. Let me have fun. Ask for monthly ticket. Holding the information collected by Pinocchio, Light smiled. As expected of the devil of lies, you have considerable prestige among the devils. The devil of lies waved his hand. It's just residual prestige, not worth mentioning. But boss, your reputation among the devils is worse than mine. Light waved his hand and began to look through the urgently collected intelligence. It must be said that the devil is a devil after all. He can actually collect a thick stack of things that just happened in the god realm. The most important thing is that there are detailed analysis and deductions in it, which is very surprising. As if he could see the doubts in Light's mind, old Pinocchio laughed. Boss, you may not know that the devils are extremely interested in your intelligence. As long as it's about you, it can be sold for a good price. And one piece of intelligence can be easily sold many copies. Wright's face suddenly became ugly. This is not good. I don't like the feeling of being stared at. Don't worry about this. The devils are not stupid. They also know who not to offend. The intelligence sold about you is mostly trivial matters, and there are a lot of confusing rumors. They dare not sell the really important information casually. Wright snorted coldly. It seems that I have to find an opportunity to punish these cunning foxes, and it would be best to make them have some more. Not only can they not sell it, they can't investigate it at will. Leave this job to me. I'm a professional. Wright didn't say anything, but just quickly flipped through the information and finally let out a sigh of relief. Very detailed and of high quality. Old Pinocchio, you did a great job this time. Pinocchio held his waist and laughed. Of course, I'm not a pushover. It's just that time is too tight. If you give me more time, I can give a report that is 10 times more detailed. That's not necessary. If it's too detailed, it will dilute the importance of the information. Light said as he threw the intelligence on the table. I didn't expect that these guys would go to such a detailed level to deal with me. How should I put it? It's also an effort. As a collector of information, the devil of lies naturally screened the information and had a better understanding of the content. Boss, I think their plan is quite targeted. If you ask me, you should take it seriously. Serious? I always take it seriously. Really? I don't believe it. The devil of lies shook his head repeatedly. But every time I see you, you don't care. And I always feel that you have endless cards to play, and they are always bottomless. Wright shook his finger and said, you have to work harder to be able to not care. You saw the thief eating meat, but did you see the thief being beaten? Did you see the thief practicing his skills? Boss, the lesson is, since the other party has made full preparations, it would be too insulting if I did nothing. Wright grinned. We must prepare a big gift for them to be worthy of their efforts. Let me think about it. How can I kill people and break their hearts? The devil of lies shuddered aside. The boss is worthy of being the boss. Not only does he want to kill people, but he also pursues the effect of breaking their hearts. Leope, come and help me. Me. Boss, I just helped you collect information, and you didn't even let me take a break. Wright grabbed his neck and said, "Stop talking nonsense and follow me. I tell you, as long as you are busy, you won't miss your disciples. I'm also caring for the empty nest demon, understand? Well, okay, I won't miss Alice when I'm busy." The lying demon followed Wright out of the palace of the fairy tale kingdom and walked towards the cultivation base of magic plants. One man and one demon plunged into the operation room of the cultivation base and began to prepare for the next gambling fight. After a long struggle, Wright finally got a work that he was satisfied with. The lying demon looked at the second generation of magic plants and couldn't help swallowing his saliva. Even from a demon's perspective, these things are too much. "Boss, what you just said, that you should not only kill people, but also destroy their hearts, I actually don't believe it. But from this point of view, I advise you to be gentle, so as not to become the public enemy of the entire god realm. Is it too much?" Light raised his eyebrows. "I have been very restrained." The corner of the lying demon's mouth twitched. "I think after this gambling fight, the life god system will probably be embarrassed to call itself the life god system. Haha, you are a bit too exaggerated. Boss, you really have no self-awareness in this regard. As a demon, I even began to sympathize with the gods of the life god system. No, strictly speaking, I sympathize with all the gods who are about to witness this tragedy. Maybe, after watching the gambling fight, there will be a group of fallen gods in the demon world." Light patted his shoulder. "Thank you for your hard work, Leopai. I will use it with caution. That's all for today, and I should go back. Otherwise, I will miss the agreed time for the gambling fight. Boss, be cautious." I know. When Wright left the fairytale subspace and woke up in bed, the sky was already slightly white. Are you awake?" A pair of jade arms wrapped around his neck. Lilith rested her head next to his ear and kissed him on the face. "How's your work going? Have I been busy all night?" Wright rubbed his temple with one hand. "I remember it was noon when I went to bed. How come? Hey, why are you alone here? Where's Jonah?" "Huh? She went back to the god realm a long time ago." Wright frowned. "Did Afra tell her about the gambling fight? She is the lord of the gods court and the lord of the world. Although she and Afra are no longer twin gods, there are still some intricate connections between them. Are you still planning to hide it from her?" Wright hugged Lilith in his arms. "Not really. I wanted to tell her when everything is ready. As for the demon realm, do you want me to give a heads up in advance?" "No, I'm ready." Wright grinned. "This time, I will make sure the other party knows what cruelty is. I guarantee that the life god system will suffer from psychological trauma when the holy light event is mentioned in the future." "You are so bad." The succubus's fingers gently stroked Wright's chest, looking at him with seductive eyes. "You guys are competing in the god realm, so I can't go." "It doesn't matter, it won't take too long. I'll finish early, and then I'll come back to accompany you, right?" Wright suddenly seemed to remember something and grabbed Lilith's restless little hand with a sly smile on his face. Oh, didn't you buy the traditional elves clothes? Let me take a look." Now, Lilith was a little flustered. After all, Jonah was not there, and she was alone, so she was a little unsure. "Well, don't you have something to do today? A bet, right? Aren't you going to have a bet today? Go to the god realm quickly. Let Jonah wear it in the god realm for you to see." How could she bring the elves' clothes back? Wright's eyes were burning. "Go quickly, so that I can criticize you severely. It will be dawn soon." "What are you afraid of? It's okay to be late for a while." Okay. Chapter 373 Go Glorious. You're 2 prayer hours late. In the main hall of the Holy Light Temple, Afra was furious and roared loudly. "You're 2 prayer hours late. Are you that sleepy? Keep your voice down. Your saliva is spraying on my face." Wright rubbed his cheeks. "I didn't sleep in. I just had breakfast with Lilith." "What kind of breakfast can take 2 prayer hours? Huh? Do you think I'm stupid? What did you eat?" "Gold." Wright's eyes drifted. "Fried dough sticks and soy milk." "What is that?" "A nutritious breakfast." Wright pointed at Jonah on the side. "Your sister Jonah has also eaten it. She likes it very much." Jonah, who was suddenly called by her name, was startled and glared at Wright with a shy face. "Ahem, it is true. It may take some effort. Since Sister Jonah said so, okay. Afra gave up and muttered angrily, "You were late for so long." The life god system came to her just several times. At first, they just asked questions. Later, they started to sneer. Then they started to get angry. Finally, they became very humble and begged us to go. Wright curled his lips. What a clear mentality evolution. Well, since everyone is here, let's go to the agreed arena. After that, Wright looked at the two sisters of the goddess of life on the side. Noranoi, if you find it difficult, you can. Mr. Wright, you don't have to say it. Since we left the life god system, we have made up our minds to break off all ties with those people and completely sever our ties. Nora held her sister's hand with a firm expression. This time, we are going to cheer you up as a member of the Holy Light God Court. Sister Noi also nodded heavily. Although she didn't say anything, her eyes were as firm as her sister's. Wright smiled slightly. Very good, very energetic. However, the one you are cheering for today is not me, but your sister Afra. Hey, me. Afra was startled. I'm going to fight the life god system? Of course. Jonah was also a little panicked and grabbed Wright's arm. Right, this kind of thing, you can't joke about it. I'm not kidding. Wright spread his hands. Unfortunately, the other party took advantage of the loophole in the contract. Strictly speaking, I'm not a member of the Holy Light Court, because I'm not even a god. So, I can't directly participate in the battle. Afra, this time you have to fight the enemy as the master of the Holy Light Court. But I. Seeing that she was really panicked, Wright suddenly laughed. Don't worry, I've made all the preparations. When the time comes, you just need to do what I say, and everything will be fine. I just can't do it myself, but this matter doesn't actually require me to do it myself. Having said that, Wright took out a stack of cards from his arms and handed them to Afra. This is a prop. During the gambling fight, both gods have 3 chances to use divine tools or divine arts. You just need to follow my instructions and there will be no problem. After hearing what Wright said, Afra felt much more at ease. With the stack of cards in her arms, Afra felt her back straightened instantly. Let's go. I can't wait to teach those guys a lesson. Nolanoi. Let me teach those bad guys from the life god system a lesson. Okay. Let's go. With Wright's order, teams of 4 winged angels took off into the air, escorting Wright and his party out of the Holy Light Court and flying towards their destination, the Arena of the Gods. After a period of flight, everyone finally landed in the arena. Seeing the arrival of the people from the Holy Light Court, the gods of the life god system and the dragon gods of the dragon realm, who had been waiting for a long time, all breathed a sigh of relief. They are finally here. So good. To be honest, although the contract has been signed, these gods are still unsure. You know, Wright is famous throughout the demon world for exploiting loopholes in the contract. Whether it was demons or devils, they all avoided him. The gods were really not sure whether the gambling contract they signed could restrain him. Mr. Light, you are finally here. I thought you were too scared to dare. Alright. Light raised his hand and interrupted Ravdal's greetings and ridicule. Hurry up and start. Time is already very tight, and you are still wasting time here. Ravdal was stunned. Isn't time tight because you are late? How come this person changed the subject and made it our fault? He was about to argue with reason, but was stopped by the elf dragon god. Alright. It's good that people are here. Let's start quickly. Don't let those people wait anxiously. Although Ravdal was very unconvinced, he had to give up now. Since both parties have arrived, let's start. Begin. In the huge circular arena of the gods, many gods of the pantheon sat in the audience. Some of them were stacker holders, and some were just there to watch the fun. The gods of life and the dragons gathered together and sat on one side of the arena, while Wright led everyone to sit opposite them. As both sides took their seats, a huge head appeared above the arena. That was the great will of the arena of the gods, called the Judgment, which was similar to a referee. The two sides of the gambling fight have taken their positions. According to the gambling contract, the first game of the gambling fight between the two sides is to purify the lost land. Please ask the representatives of both sides to step onto the duel stage. On the side of the gods of life, Ravdal did not move, but the elf dragon god stepped onto the duel stage. Seeing this scene, the gods in the audience discussed it, and some even raised objections. Isn't it the duel between the gods of life and the holy light court today? Why are you, a dragon god, joining in the fun? Ravdal stood up and shouted loudly, just yesterday, Emerald Heretic had left the dragon clan and joined our gods of life. Now it is reasonable for him to join the war as a member of the gods of life. Sure enough, the judgment also nodded slightly. It means that the rules are followed, and there is nothing unusual. Seeing their evil plan succeeded, the gods in the audience were quite dissatisfied. The reputation of the god of life is not very good, and it has many enemies among the gods. But Ravdal didn't care, and looked at the Holy Light Court provocatively. Mr. Light, who are you sending to fight? Oh, I forgot to remind you, Mr. Light, although you are powerful, you are not a god. So you are not a member of the god's court, and according to the contract, you cannot fight. Ha 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 ha. Oh. Light just patted Afra's head lightly. Go and shine. Chapter 374. Is this a human? Subscribe. Afra took a deep breath and stood on the duel stage. Seeing the calm reaction from the Holy Light Court, the life god system became a little panicked. Why aren't they panicking and getting angry? Ravdal frowned. Did he predict my prediction? The elf dragon god was also a little worried, but soon began to comfort himself. Maybe he knew it from the beginning. Don't worry, our preparations are foolproof. Well, then, let's proceed according to the plan. The identity verification of both parties in the gambling battle has passed, and the screening of the lost world has begun. The screening is over, and the target world has been selected. With the voice of the judge, the entire arena of the gods began to shake. The ground in the center of the arena began to collapse, and then a huge world appeared. This is a lost world, and the entrance to the demon world has been opened for unknown reasons. Endless demons flooded here like a tide, slaughtering the natives of the world and plundering the resources here crazily. If there is no external intervention from the gods, it will not take long for this world to be eaten up by the demons and completely destroyed. Just like a rotten apple eaten by worms on an apple tree. The world transmission channel has been established, and both duelists can send their followers. The initial number of individuals is 100. The initial energy level is black iron. Okay, I'm coming. The elf dragon god didn't want to waste a second, and directly stretched out his hand to point at the world phantom below the arena. 100 green lights fell from the sky and sank into the world phantom. 100 wood elves appeared in this lost world and quickly gathered together and found a forest to hide. There are many kinds of gods followers in the life god system, but the most complete and famous one is naturally the elf lineage. Among the elves, the wood elves are the most basic and lowest level followers, and according to the great classification, they are probably the level of black iron. The ordinary elves that followed, that is, the elves in the holy light world, that have not been advanced, and the dark elves, all belong to the bronze species. However, the royal bloodline among these bronze elves can barely be considered silver. After being promoted to great elves, this group of people all jumped to the silver race. Above the great elves, there are the golden races, which are called high elves. When they are promoted to holy elves, which are comparable to angels, they become the extremely rare holy races among the followers. In the duel field, in order to ensure fairness and make the duel more reasonable, the rules have eliminated the behavior of directly throwing golden race individuals to start a battle. After all, such a duel would lose suspense and become a simple battle to compete with the background of the gods, which would lose the meaning of the duel. After the elf dragon god threw the lowest level wood elves, the gods turned their attention to Afra. Wright chuckled and slowly said, "Afra, draw the first card." Afra quickly took out all the cards, then took out the first card and poured in divine power. With a buzz, the holy principal ring appeared above the head of the holy light goddess Afra and transformed her holy light divine power into the power of the ocean. Then, 100 azure rays of light descended from the sky and landed in the lost world. The gods looked closely and burst into laughter. Ha ha ha, what did I see? She actually summoned humans. Humans. It was actually humans. 100 humans. What kind of thinking? Is this because the demons don't eat well and are giving them extra food? Did these humans commit some crime, so they were thrown here by this cruel goddess to be punished? To be honest, it's better to be hanged directly. Although the gods laughed, Ravdal frowned. He was not on the duel stage, but he could see the extraordinary features of these 100 humans. Strong. Abnormally strong. The tallest of these humans was 3 meters tall, with strong backs and waists, bulging muscles all over their bodies, and exuding a terrifying momentum. Moreover, he just felt that the other party used some means to summon the followers of the sea god with the power of holy light. But the place where they were dropped was an ordinary plain area. Although this lost world also has a sea, since it is the vassal of the sea god, wouldn't it be better to summon the sea people? Wit. Irajali, be careful. The other party is not that simple. I know. Irajali nodded slightly and began his action. He commanded the wood elves to start madly plundering the life energy of the jungle. The elves coexist harmoniously with nature, and the jungle is their home. But the gods did not create them for them to live a dull life. Elves can coexist with nature, and at the same time, they can also plunder the life force of nature. These guys who look harmless are much more capable than humans in destroying. Under the crazy absorption of the wood elves, the dense jungle gradually turned into a desert. And these 100 wood elves have accumulated enough life force and completed the advancement. Under the shining light, 100 wood elves were promoted to bronze elves. Their comprehensive ability has also made a qualitative leap. Very good. After advancing to bronze species, we can start large-scale demon hunting. Irajal was in a good mood when he saw the plan going smoothly. During the duel, hunting demons can get a lot of points. When the points are enough, more and higher level followers can be deployed. The strength of the black iron species is low. If they directly clash with the demons, they may be easily wiped out. Even if they can kill a few enemies, they will lose manpower. Now, after all the members are bronze species, it is equivalent to a catapult start. The efficiency of killing enemies of 100 bronze species is unattainable by 100 black iron species. This kind of thing is that one step faster and one step faster. Once the distance is widened, the lagging party will have to pay 10 times or 100 times the price to catch up. Attack. Roll the snowball. At Irajiral's command, the elves rushed out of the jungle and killed the demons wandering nearby. Sure enough, after eliminating the unstable factor of Wright, the whole thing went much more smoothly. 100 humans. How weird can they be? After Heraclius gave the order, he looked towards the location of the holy light god's followers. You wouldn't know until you saw it. You saw that around the 100 sea god followers, there were demons that had died without knowing when. And the weirdest thing was, the blood and flesh of those dead demons were constantly twisting and wriggling, as if they were called by something, and entangled with these humans. How could these be 100 humans? Such special demons looked more like demons. Chapter 375 Offering Flesh and Blood to the Sea God. What is this? Ravdal wailed and questioned, isn't this against the rules? Wright, who was on the other side of the arena, spread his hands and said, the followers of the sea god. What do your followers have to do with the sea? A mountain of corpses and a sea of blood is also a sea. Ravdal quickly looked at the judge, who pondered for a moment. No abnormality. The duel continues. What? How is this possible? Ha 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 ha. Wright's eyes were full of contempt. I know what you think. You just think that, as long as I take action, the demons will definitely flee. So as long as you exclude me from the duel, you can rest assured. After all, in your view, the entire holy light world is just a small low-level world, which is completely incomparable to your life god system. What's more, there is the blessing of the dragon clan. What if I'm strong alone? You think so, right? But, damn it. Ravdal gritted his teeth, but he was helpless. On the other hand, Afra's team of 100 muscular men had already completed the initial flesh and blood armament. The skin, flesh, bones, and blood of the demons were all transformed into hard and resilient armor, which tightly wrapped the 100 followers of the flesh and blood evil god. It made their already exaggeratedly strong bodies even bigger, and the points they got from killing demons also accumulated a certain amount. Afra immediately began to consume points, and continuously sent the sea god's followers to the lost plain. One after another, muscular men fell from the sky, and joined the crazy slaughter of demons. They became more and more courageous in the battle. The more demons they killed, the stronger the power of their flesh and blood armor became, and they themselves would also receive feedback from the flesh and blood evil god. In a short time, a team of 200 or 300 people defeated the demon army that was as big as a mountain and as big as a sea. The scene was once very shocking, and many gods in the audience couldn't help but stand up to watch. Is this a human? Is this the Black Iron race? If they are the Black Iron race, what are the silver and gold followers of their own pantheon? Ravdal looked at the shadows projected from the arena below, and his eyelids twitched wildly. They wanted to use special means in the early stage to establish a big advantage in the early stage, and then keep snowballing. As a result, they were snowballed by others. The killing efficiency of these more than 100 elves is not even as good as that of the 3-person teams. Moreover, why are they 3-person teams? They cooperate so well. Then the 3 teams can repeat the cooperation of individuals and keep stacking nesting dolls. This group of muscle men is simply a meat grinder on the battlefield. The efficiency of killing enemies is not increasing exponentially, but exploding. The key is that as these people fight, the flesh and blood armor on their bodies begins to change. The muscle men who were originally barehanded not only grew a muscle and bone chainsaw that can be called an aesthetic explosion, but also evolved into a flesh and blood pulse bone blasting gun. You brought your own equipment, right? The materials are all the bones of the demons you killed, right? Ammunition supplies can be replenished anytime and anywhere, right? No need to worry about logistics at all. Infinite endurance, right? Can't afford to play? Have you never won? The handrails of the audience seats have been deformed by Ravdal. We can't go on like this. Ravdal looked at the elf dragon god on the duel stage, and the latter nodded slightly. We must speed up the progress of the plan, otherwise there will be no chance to turn the tables. Dyrachiril raised his hand, and the judge turned to look at him. Judgment, I apply for a divine advent. Approved. Allowed. Dyrachiril quickly took out a seed that looked like a peach pit from his back and threw it towards the phantom below. The seed disappeared immediately and then appeared in the sky above the lost world, accompanied by the power of the elf dragon god, and descended in front of the elves. The leader of the elves was ecstatic. After receiving the seed, they immediately shrank the battle line, planted the seed carefully, and then began to irrigate it with their own blood. With this kind of irrigation and cultivation at all costs, the seed quickly took root and sprouted, and soon grew into a towering tree. The gods in the audience focused their eyes on the tree. Obviously, some well-informed gods had already recognized this sacred tree. It's actually the survival tree. The life god system really spent a lot of money. This is the second time I've seen the survival tree. I heard that their skills in making survival trees have been lost, and there are not many left. They actually took it out during the gambling fight. For those 2 artifacts, without the crown of the King of the Sun, the life god system would be a joke. It's what they deserve. Who made them drive the daughter of the King of the Sun away? The gods in the audience talked a lot, and at this moment the elves in the lost world couldn't wait. Although this sacred tree looks like a smaller version of the ancient tree of life, the crown is full of fruits. However, these fruits are of different shapes, and some are large and some are small. As the fruits mature, the elves climbed up the crown to take the fruits. With the infusion of life element, those huge fruits turned into magic devices one after another. The small fruits were also picked by the elves and then eaten. With the survival fruit in their stomachs, these bronze elves evolved again and became silver elves. Their strength was improved again, and they all took powerful and 100% compatible magic weapons. The big elves who were once again put into the battlefield quickly caught up with the muscle men in killing enemies. They kept brushing points and summoned more big elves to join the battlefield. But it was visible to the naked eye that serious desertification began to appear around the survival tree. It seems that this improvement is also at the cost of excessive absorption of surrounding vitality. Afra on the duel stage was a little panicked when she saw this and looked back at Wright. What should I do? They are catching up. Wright snapped his fingers. Next card. Use Holy Advent. Next. Oh. Afra quickly took out the second card and raised her hand to apply to the judge. I want to use the Divine Advent ones too. Approved. Allowed. Afra quickly threw the card in her hand into the arena, and the card dissipated in midair, replaced by a bone knife and fork mixed with flesh and blood. Halo blessing, the knife and fork of the sea god. This light fell into the shadow of the arena. At the same time, a blood-red light bloomed in the sky above the lost world, falling on the bodies of more than 500 muscular men. A knife and fork crossed, and a black flag with a skull hanging above slowly emerged. The muscular men raised their hands and crossed them, then placed them under their chins, roaring, "Blood sacrifice! Blood sacrifice! Blood sacrifice! For the great sea god! Offer flesh and blood!" Such a crazy scene made the gods and the audience scalp numb. Is the sea god they are talking about a serious god? End of this chapter. Thank you very much for reaching the end. Don't forget to like. Looking for more exclusive content and immediate access? Subscribe to our Patreon. Remember, every like, subscription, or donation encourages us to continue. Thanks to everyone. See you in the next video.